Valentine.
Here.
Trustee Smith. Here. Trustee Markle.
Here.
Trustee Butler.
All right, I would ask everybody up here, please speak loudly. Our voices are not projected out to the audience except by our own vocal cords. They do get picked up by the speakers and they do show on the Zoom, but people here cannot hear us if we don't speak up. So please speak up. All right. Now, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Can we get a motion to approve the agenda? I'm sorry, what?
Motion to approve the
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Markle?
To modify the agenda, we have a lot of guests here tonight. And I think it would be appropriate to move item number 10, banners and flags, which I presume is why everybody's here. Number 1, guests.
Okay.
And possibly also number 6, Gunnison Outdoor Resources Protection Act, the presenter. I think it would be good of us to respect his time and move him up as well. So,
All right.
following.
Do I have a second
that.
on that? You have a second? All right. All in favor of?
I actually have those fast. When you do these moves on the agenda, it would be nice if on the YouTube channel, the staffs could put the new agenda. So when people try to look for the movie, they know where to find things, because the scramble is always very confusing when you try to go back and look at it. No, just under in the comments or something.
Okay, yeah, the chat.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second to amend the agenda to move items 10 and 6 after recognition of visitors and guests. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we have a modified agenda to accept the agenda with items 10 and 6 being moved. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, next up is announcements. Again, the West Elk Byway group will be here tomorrow between 10 and 4. No, 10 and 2. So if you want to come and give your input into the group that decides what goes on with the West Elk Byway, it is open to the public. So please come and express your opinion. Does anyone else have any announcements? Nope, seeing none. All right, let's move on to recognition of visitors and guests. And this portion of the agenda is for people who want to address the board about something that is not currently on the agenda. So if you're here about flags, then let's wait, and because it will be the next item on the agenda. So I would like to introduce Sally Kane. Yes, she is going to be our facilitator for our strategic plan, and she has a few things to say before. Thank you.
Thank you. This is very short notice. There was a facilitator previously who was going to come and work with the council, and so that was about 4 days ago, Mary, right?
No, it was longer than that. I
Okay,
believe I emailed the board on the 13th or 14th about the change.
So having already scheduled a listening session for the community, Mary contacted me to see if I was willing to come on Saturday and help facilitate that listening session. So today I met with Mary, and for you council members, this was an agenda that we thought could serve for guiding the listening session, and just wanted to bring it to your attention, make sure it looks good to you, particularly paying attention to those 5 areas that are tied to, remind me.
It was a comprehensive plan. We voted a couple weeks ago to make our agenda match the comprehensive plan. There are a couple of things on the comprehensive plan that are not specifically on here. And it's primarily because in our discussions, we decided that each of the council members would facilitate a listening group, and that each of the council members would take one of these things and that they would keep track of what was going on in the group and then report back. And so because we are only going to have 5 or 6 people. So John won't be here. We're going to have 5 people for the whole day, 6 people for part of the day. That's why we condensed and put some of these topics together so that we could run the groups and hit everything. All right, any feedback on the draft?
Especially the topics. I think that's the main thing.
Right, that's the main thing. And I think the only thing that we actually did not put in here that was in the comprehensive plan was a section called regulatory, and that was about intergovernmental agreements, basically.
State.
Right, that kind of stuff.
Mary, just one word if I might for the council. I live out of city limits, so I'm not a voter in the town. And my family has been here since 1973, and I went through public school here and went off to Colorado State University. So a long time member of the Paonia community, but not involved in the local politics. And I'm also I'm not on social media, so I really don't know a lot of the stuff that goes on those channels. But I am a trained facilitator with 30 years of experience in that kind of work. So I'm happy to donate my time and help that listening session happen, because you all put a lot of time and effort into setting the date aside and the time and making room for community members to give their feedback. And I just want to help you with that.
Thank you very much, Sally. The other thing I would like to do is invite everybody in this room to the strategic planning session on Saturday. It will start at 10 a.m. We will have a community potluck at noon, and it will run until about 3. And we want your input. We want to hear from you about where you want to see Paonia going. Where do you think our problems are? What do you see in the future? What would you like Paonia to be in 5 or 10 years? So if you could please come and give us your input, it would be wonderful. Thank you. All right, Mr. Knudsen.
Well, I just want to thank Sally for stepping up to the plate. She said a very important word. She's donating her time. She's a trained facilitator. I appreciate that. So thank you so much.
All right, anything from the board on this? All right. Okay, yes, please speak up, Dave.
Okay. She's a trained facilitator and she's donating her time and we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me know.
All right. All right. So who would like to address the board on something that is not on the agenda? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you.
And please state your name and the street on which you live.
Certainly. Laura Beth, and I live on Highway.
Okay, thank you.
I'm addressing the board because I was at the Brandon Morton Fire District office last week on June 14th at approximately 2:10 p.m. No, can't hear you. Sorry. I was at the Rankin Mountain Fire District office last week on June 14th at approximately 2:10 p.m. when 3 Paonia police officers drove up in 2 police vehicles and dumped a man off along Highway 133 and immediately drove away toward Paonia. The man appeared to be under the influence and perhaps mentally ill because he was lurching around, groaning, making unintelligible noises. He was holding a styrofoam cup at arm's length in front of him and waving it around. I left Somerset. I was going elsewhere and was driving when I saw Gunnison County Sheriff's Deputy Scott Leon at the Bowie turnoff. I stopped and asked him if he could get the Paonia officers to come back and get the man. I was worried that he would stumble onto the highway and be hit by a speeding vehicle. We had vehicles going through Somerset at upwards of 60 miles an hour, semis even. Deputy Leon said he would go see what was going on. He told me that he had heard that the man had just been released from the hospital. A witness later told me that Deputy Leon picked him up. I don't know what transpired after that. I wanted to start with this and go to that second. The following day, I went to town hall and got a Cora records request form, but was told by a town clerk that I had to go to the police department to get the records. I told her that I thought that she was wrong and that Cora records requests were processed by town hall. The form was there. Corinne Ferguson is the custodian of records, as everyone is aware. I left and called Mayor Mary Opera, and she said Corinne had to fulfill the records request, but again, she had just my information at that point. And she said she would have Corinne call me. Corinne did not. The town of Paonia continues to have an adversarial relationship with citizens who exercise their right to records access due to the Colorado Open Records Act, or CORA. There are many reasons that a custodian of records is designated as the one who processes these requests. The most obvious is that there are time constraints, so you have one person responsible for it. Another benefit of Cora, or Corinne processing the Cora requests is so that she's aware of what is happening in other departments of the Paonia government. The last is that if they had a protocol insisting this happen in all records request situations, it would avoid citizens seeking information having to go directly to the department that has potentially violated a statute or ethics. It also avoids a confrontation between government employees and the citizen requesting the information. I came up with a slogan for this. I know that Tom Wills likes slogans. It shouldn't be a fight, it's our right. Regarding this man, there will not be fewer like him in the future, only more. As more people lose their homes, a common side effect for many is the loss of their job, followed by substance abuse and or mental illness. This man and others like him need help, not the public humiliation of being dumped along the highway. There are resources available that were not looked into. The homeless shelter in Delta is in your county, not ours, where he was dumped, is one. No mental health professionals were consulted. According to the 2 police reports I've read, I've asked for referrals to other agencies. We've been hearing a lot about restoration of ethics in the news when discussing the January 6th committee's findings. Transparency is so essential at all levels of government. It reveals those needing continued education, sensitivity training, and communication skills building. In some cases, it even reveals those that aren't suited for their public service positions. Many progressive communities are utilizing mental health and human resources professionals to respond to this type of situation if it doesn't involve criminal activity. I just don't believe police officers are appropriate. Your segue before, it was a perfect segue. I hope the town of Paonia takes this opportunity to establish better procedures that could positively impact so many people.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you for your time, everyone.
What was the date?
June 14th at approximately 2:15. I did receive records from the police department today, but only 2 officers' records. I was shocked to find out they didn't have to file their reports immediately after, at least the same day or the following morning. They had not filed reports as of yesterday. So they had plenty of time to discuss what would go into those reports. Perhaps, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Today I got 2 officers' reports. The 3rd officer his report has to be reviewed by the chief who is out of town for 2 weeks. There was body cam evidence for 2 officers from situations that transpired earlier. Apparently the man was yelling at people outside of the ballot box. They asked him to go to the park. Then he was found lying along the side of the road. Though I couldn't understand the word he was saying, apparently the 2nd officer in question, Officer Cotton, said that even though it was hard to understand, he said he wanted to go 6 miles down the road and he pointed in the direction of Somerset, and that's why they brought him to Somerset. So I would like to see the body cam footage to see if he did in fact say that. I just don't feel it was appropriate. I understand there are 2 sides to every story, but I just don't feel it's appropriate to voice people who need other help onto another county. And I was the first to approach him. I'm a senior citizen. I don't have a gun. And this man's groaning and grunting in front of me. The woman that I was with in the Ragged Mountain Fire District office said, "I'll watch you until you get in your vehicle." So they had 3 officers with guns and they thought it was appropriate to leave them with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else want to approach talk to the board about something that is not on the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes.
Could you move the podium to the side so that people can hear better? I don't know if that would be appropriate, but
Yeah, we can try to do that for sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Watson.
Now that it's at the side, it would be nice to have something, but seriously. I know, but if you're reading something, it's nice to be able to set something. Okay, so last night, I guess you appointed a chief of police, but when this happened, there was no chief of police, I understand, right? But you also have a public safety committee now. So I'm wondering if you might look at the avenue, seriously look at the avenue that you might follow instead of waiting for a very novice chief of police that you just appointed to look into it. So hopefully there's an expeditious way that this board can handle this complaint. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Linda McCone, Second Street.
So the reason that I wanted to address the council is because I've been watching the meetings from home because I can't hear you. That's the main thing that's been happening. And it wasn't the meeting last night, and I can't remember if it was the meeting before then. But at one of the past meetings, there was an issue that came up about reviewing the building permits for 2 buildings on Grand Street. And a motion was made to review those building permits that were issued some time ago. And the billing has been going on for at least a year and possibly longer. So the attorney spoke up and said, if you do this, you are leaving the town open to a lawsuit. He said it 3 times, and that motion was made anyway and passed. Not everybody voted for it, but I just have to say, if there is a lawsuit from that, I don't believe that the town of Paonia should pay for that. When you ignore the advice from your attorney, I think that the people who voted yes for that should pay. Thank you. Thank you. All right, would anyone else like to address the board about something that is not on the agenda? All right, seeing none, let's move on to Town of Paonia banners and flags, policies and procedures.
I'd like to make a motion that the only flags flown on town of Paonia property be the United States flag of Colorado.
Yes.
I'll second it.
Discussion by the board.
The reason why I'm saying this is that there's a lot of fracture lines in our community. And I think we have to be really careful about driving a wedge into any of those fracture lines. There's fracture lines between the hippies and the rednecks, which go back to the 1970s. There's fracture lines between the Christian and the secular communities. There's fracture lines between the Anglo and Hispanic communities. I think we have to be very careful about doing something that will offend a particular part of our community. Now, I looked at the survey and it looked like most of the merchants were on board with the current flags, but it's not a question of the majority ruling. I think you also have to respect the rights of the minority. It's something as simple as just restricting our flags to our governmental flags. We avoid a lot of conflict.
Okay, any other discussion from the board? Yes, Mr. Mark.
I live and work at 302 2nd Street down the corner, the local nomad with my wife, Michelle, and a lot of you know her as well. It's a big 2-story building. If you don't know the address, it's across from Don's, across from Reedy's, on the corner there. We painted it dark blue last year. We keep over 200 flags on our balcony all the time. They fly there all the time. Most of them are flags of nations from all over the world, but we only have 3 full-size flags there. 1 is the American flag, 2 is the Pride Progress flag, and 3 is the Colorado state flag. Not in that order, that's just left to right. Okay. Hopefully, all of you can understand that by including those symbols, right, we're intentionally sending a message. And the message is, you're welcome here. It applies to all people. If only one of those flags were there, that message of inclusion could be interpreted as a message of exclusion. Regardless of which flag you prefer to fly, hopefully you can accept that there are people here who do not identify with it. What is seen by you to be all-inclusive wholesome, and a message of solidarity and inclusion, which is what both of those flags represent to me, may be seen by someone else as a threat, a taunt, and anything but inclusive. Now, we've received a lot of really heated, passionate, and well-written correspondence. I appreciate everybody being respectful, and it's great to see a community just communicate with each other. I recognize that you care very deeply about this, and I want to make a few things clear about this whole thing. One, the light poles themselves are the property of DMEA. Okay, we have a memorandum of understanding with them for the items that we put on there. And that includes all of the holiday fixtures, the graduation portraits, and all that. Okay. The decision to place the flags was made according to historic policy and procedure. And the board was not involved in that decision. Okay. We are sensitive to the feelings that all of this has brought up for all of us. Okay. But we will not be able to satisfy everyone here. What we intend to do here is create a policy that we can rely on to be fair and neutral. Now, I think that this is probably a good solution. It's easy. This is the easy solution. What I did was I contacted our state capitol complex facilities management in Denver because they fly all kinds of flags at their state capitol. But they indicated that when they fly a flag other than the American flag or the Colorado flag, it's displayed on the grounds. It's directed by the governor, not by the Capitol complex. It's the governor. It's raised by his staff, and it's not flown instead or on the same spot as the American and the Colorado flags. Usually they'll hang it off a window, right, or a banister. So I think that if this motion does not pass, I would like to propose an alternative motion wherein the mayor would determine what goes on the light poles.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Martin. Do we have other comments from the board? Jeff?
If I might, this is a two-pronged situation. So the DMEA owns those light poles, and we have code about those poles that, let me just find the right one. So the town shall be permitted to make all reasonable use of the company's distribution poles and street lighting poles for any town purpose, so long as the use complies with appropriate safety codes. So my point is, they are not our poles. They belong to DMEA, and I was not aware of the MOU, but I would rather not see anything other than what the town assigns as its purpose, which are part of the MOU. I'm assuming what is in that MOU is what DMEA has agreed to, since it's with DMEA. So my point would be, we need to make a distinction between the DMEA light poles and the town street. It's two different situations. So to me, we stick with the town purpose and no other flags other than what is in this, what did you just call it? Oh, the agreement can go on those town of Paonia poles. And then the other thing I want to bring up is, if you're not aware of it, and Jeff Conklin may have some more to add to the Supreme Court decision that was made pretty recently unanimously. And it was based on the town of Boston has 3 flags, and they would allow anybody to fly any flag they wanted on one of those poles if they were having an activity at the town hall. And because of that, a group came in from a Christian camp, and they wanted to fly their flag. And the city of Boston said no. They were taken to the Supreme Court, and the reason the city of Boston lost, because they were told, you now, because you do not have a policy about which flags you will erect on that flagpole, you have left government speak, and you are now in public speech, and they had a First Amendment right to fly that flag. So the town of Boston, I just looked today, they are not accepting any applications for flags as of November 19th. That's how they dealt with it. But I'm quite concerned that the town of Paonia needs to have a very clear policy about what I just described about the DMEA poles. They are for town purposes only. And secondly, I think we need a very clear policy about what we will have on town property. So therefore, and this will have to be changed in ordinance, because there is ordinance about signs that's also quite convoluted. that needs to be fixed if we go on any motion we make tonight and approve. It's going to require an ordinance change, which I would assume would follow. But I am in favor of the motion made by Dave Weber because it's very prescriptive. It's very limiting. If somebody came in and wanted to put up swastikas, they couldn't. But that means very clearly only American flags. There's no question about anybody else coming in. And this shouldn't be about what I like and what I don't like. That's not our purpose here. We are a municipality. So to me, leave it where it's been with American flags. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah, Mr. Knudsen.
I'll try to use a teacher voice. We've had I've been on the board a little over 3 years. And this is the most correspondence I've seen on any issue ever. I've carefully studied both sides of this, and I can understand the people that come from a devout spiritual or Christian background that really see the flags to them as being offensive. So I've seen that part. I've also seen the part, and I have a brother who is gay, of the people who feel that those flags also represent inclusion, tolerance, and compassion for people who have suffered. When Jill and I drove back into town from a family trip, and we came down by Dawn's and saw the flags around town, we thought, boy, is that ever neat? And we saw "You are welcome" here. So we thought that was the message. We did not expect the blowback. One thing that concerns me about only American flags is that we did some pretty neat things on the polls in the last couple of years, like the graduation class, putting that up. You know, we have Christmas decorations that go up. So there's a number of things that go up, and I think it's wise to have a policy that prescribes that. I was really impressed by the group that tried to fly these flags because, first of all, they found private donations. They did a poll of the business owners, and they found 83% of the people wanted to have those flags in front of their place and were fine. They respected the rights of those who didn't want to fly them. So there's a bunch of pieces on this that point me toward, let's get, and I know it's tough, we have to come together as a community and try to work this out in something that would be fair to everyone. But I was impressed with the process that the group went through in order to put those flags up. And I think that using that as a guideline for a policy might be a way to go. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Knudsen. Anyone else? No? Okay. I would like to point out that in this motion, it does say that only flags flown on the town of Paonia property, which means there are only a couple of flagpoles in this town, which are town of Paonia property. As has been stated by both Ms. Smith and Mr. Markle, those DMA poles are not town property. So I believe with them that we need to create a policy for what we're going to put on those poles. And whatever that policy is, then the town should abide by it. But I am fine with flying only United States flag and the Colorado flag on town property. Okay. Who would like to speak from the public? We're going to set because there are so many people, and I'm sure there's lots of people who would like to speak, we're going to set a 3-minute limit on each speaker. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand and come. Yes, Ms. DeLuca.
Amy DeLuca, German Creek. I want to say thank you for the rainbow flags. I think they're beautiful, and my business and the businesses in my building sponsored them. I do have a question. I don't know, maybe it's an admin question, but there are also the banner hardware on those, and are those on the DMEA poles or the town property poles?
DMEA.
Okay, and so I didn't, if I missed it, so are you suggesting that, because there's currently a project underway to use those banners with the Paonia Delta Chamber and the Creative Coalition, a collaboration happening to utilize the banners with the Town of Paonia logo and local art. So
we're deep into this and it gotten permission. So I'm really interested in knowing if you're changing that policy or informing us of something we haven't been told before. I'd really like to know what that is, and are we supposed to now direct our efforts to DMEA? You know, I don't know which is a town pole and which is a DMEA pole. That's not, unless it's a street light or, I don't know. I need an explanation on the difference. Thank you.
All right, who else would like to speak? All right, yes, Con.
My name is Constantine Hirschfeld, and I swore I was never coming this way. You are totally against these gay flags that are put up around this house. The American flag should be up there, stars and stripes only. As far as I'm concerned, or like you said, the Colorado flag can be up. But these gay pride flags have got to go. My neighbor has one up and asked, I said, how come you got one of them up? Well, that's because they got their freedom. When did they get out of prison? And when the heck did they get out of concentration camps? Is what I want to know. They've got as many freedoms as we do. So all the flags that are not the U.S. flag should not be put up there, period.
Suzanne Watson. I was on the board when the Creative Coalition put their banner, Susie Lowe designed these banners and put them on the DMEA poles. And they had to come before the board. They had to show us their design. They had to show us what they wanted to do, and we voted. It's never been administrative until very recently, these types of decisions. This is a town decision. Those DME poles, as the ordinance says, which is a law, are, it says, Trustee Smith read it out, for town purpose. So the town, I mean, who is the town? I mean, have you chosen one person to make the decisions for the town, or is the town you? Which means the townspeople can comment. I do agree that, I mean, it's a slippery slope. You know, I think if you have, I think you should have the, I mean, I thought it was for the rainbow people that were coming through, but but I think you need to have them removed immediately, because how could you say, okay, you can have them for the rest of the month, but now we have a policy and nobody else can do it? That doesn't sound very fair either. And I mean, I think the American flag is the one flag that we have jointly agreed on in this country as an American citizen. It represents inclusion. It really does. You might not believe it, but I'm very saddened to think that the American flag is now a splinter flag. It's not. We all have to own it. People, our ancestors fought for this. I mean, I know there have been awful things that have happened in our history, but I think in our hearts, the principle is such that it's basically the one symbol that represents this whole country. And it's flying here. You guys take an oath to it. When you run for office, our whole country is based on that. And there's nothing wrong about the American flag. It's the most inclusive flag that we have all agreed on. You know, the Confederate flag, why aren't we flying that? I mean, there's so many flags that could be flying that represent people that you're not hearing from. And just because you don't agree with them doesn't mean that they shouldn't have a voice too. So that's the slippery slope. And I think the biggest job that I'd like to see you guys doing is, when you make decisions, think about keeping the peace in this town so we can all live together. If people want to fly their personal flags on their personal property, that's one thing. But this property that we all share should only have the shared symbol that we've all agreed to as Americans. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
To what she just said, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union.
What's your name?
Establish, Pamela Jackson, establish justice and ensure domestic tranquility. And if that rainbow flag is ensuring domestic tranquility, why do we have this? That flag says everything we need to say. I have gay friends. I have no problem with people who are gay. But I have a problem with people who are gay that want to take that flag away from us. That's our flag. End of story.
Thank you.
One and a half here. Hopefully with me. City council members publicly promoting the LGBT ideologies. Publicly promoting the ideologies with these flags are only the latest and further degrading of our society. I urge you to reverse this lame decision and never go down these paths again. I say lame decision because we received a lame response when we asked the city why the city was promoting these ideologies on public property. And it seemed like a canned response. People came in and filled out the forms, and we had to let them because we had no policy about it. That's a lame excuse for me. But if people are filling out forms to hang up the Confederate flag, are you going to fly those? If people are going to fly flags on public property, like was stated when we were in there, what about the Man-Boy Love Association flags? Are those going to be up next? I seriously doubt that you would have given approval for those. You have to forgive me, okay? This heat goes very deep into my soul. From the ages of 5 to 8, I was sexually molested by a pedophile that lived next door to our home. This goes to my core. If people, I'm sorry, are you so irresponsible and so recklessly unconcerned with the epidemic of youth suddenly saying in the last 10 to 20 years that they're trans? It's not an additive in the water that all of a sudden is making people believe they are not what they are. Do you think responsible adults, as responsible adults, should question youth rather than encouraging them towards these kinds of things? Drugs and mutilation of their body? Do you think that you would suggest maybe they're going through puberty and take a little time, weigh out the consequences over time, give them a little bit of good advice about when they reach adulthood, when their brains are actually fully matured? Life-altering decisions, drugs that absolutely change everything about them to the core, except when they dig up their bodies in 100 years from now. The chromosomes will tell you that that's an XX or an XY person. That's science. Are you more interested in pushing an ideology or actually helping people arrive to adulthood with maturity?
Sir, can you kind of wrap it up, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If it's only a matter of adults making adult decision or private property, fine. That's one thing. Public property is something totally different. Kids are being motivated by this kind of promotion. If you don't care about kids, then say so, because that wrecks kids. It really does. And we're pushing this on kindergarten through 12 graders now. This is not right. It doesn't take a genius to realize this is not natural. Okay, every plumber will tell you that you need a male and a female to be natural and to be scientific, okay? If the American Man-Goat Society wanted to hang their flags on public property, are you gonna let them? If you do let these, then you have to let them all. And it's that simple. Whatever the state subsidizes and promotes, it gets more of. Thanks.
My name is Betsy Johnson and I live at 1010 3rd Street. I probably have more rainbow flags in my yard than anybody else in the town. I'm probably the neighbor that he's referring to. I am sickened by what I'm hearing. And the first question I have is, why are you allowing applause now? For a year, none of us has been able to express ourselves in any way applauding, and now it's like a circus fair. This is very, very offensive to me. And I'm very offended that there's anyone serving our town as fire volunteer who talks the way he does about other human beings.
I didn't speak about any.
Excuse me, we're not gonna have a back and forth.
She's doing it.
No, sir.
I'll just talk to the mayor.
Thank you.
Science says that there's at least 140 people in the town of Paonia who consider themselves LGBTQ and are not welcome in this town, apparently.
Who said they're not welcome? Hey, we are not going to do this.
There are probably many more than that. There are youth who have thanked the town of Paonia for supporting them in this very fearful life that they live. I am the mother of a gay son who says at the age of 38, he still wakes up every morning wondering if he is going to be in some way excluded from this world and afraid to hold hands with the man he loves and is legally married to. And if you think that taking down the flags is going to somehow solve all the fractures in this town, you've got another thing coming. When you even use the word redneck, or you use the word hippie, or you talk about gay people in a pedophile way, you are being absolutely incorrect. And there are many, many people that were supportive and happy to see the flags in Paonia. And those of you who are afraid of the future and afraid of other human beings and want the flags down, I feel sad for you. I'm sorry you're so afraid of things that you know nothing about.
Can you please wrap it up?
I'm done.
Thank you. Yes,
Please do not applaud.
yes, let's cut the applause. We're not gonna argue back and forth. We're not gonna speak out from the audience unless you've been recognized by the chair.
I am the father of a gay man. I love my son. I have always loved my son. But that flag is my flag, and that's the flag I want to see over this town that I claim as my town. I love that flag. I love all that flag represents. I still love my son. And whatever she has to say, I have nothing to respond to, because I think you have to consider the source. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Cindy Owen. I live at 1111 First Street. And a couple things I wanted to say. First off, I believe that people have the right to pick their sexuality. However, I will say that the flag that you put up, you were saying was exclusive. It is not inclusive, it's exclusive. Because I am not LGBT, whatever the initials are. I get them all confused. I am not that. So therefore, when that flag comes up, I am excluded from that, because that does not pertain to me. I do not put up flags for heterosexual. I don't do that, because I feel like your sexuality is your business. It's not the public's. We don't all have to know where you're at. You can do what you want. I don't force my view on anybody. I don't tell somebody like you that you have to be heterosexual. I do not do that. I keep mine to myself. I think they need to keep theirs to themselves. What happens in private is their business, not mine. What happens in my private is not your business, it's mine. But putting that out publicly is not inclusive, it is exclusive. It is excluding. And I work on the ambulance and I work with all kinds of people and I try to be kind to everybody that I meet and I try to help them as best I can. But I still say that that flag is not inclusive, it's exclusive.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Ms. Fred.
David Bradford, 221 Poplar Avenue. I sent you all my letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I think part of it would be pertinent right now, and I'd like to read that. The flag was developed in 1978 by Gilbert Baker of San Francisco. In his memoir, Baker describes his reason for developing the flag. I thought of the American flag with its 13 stripes and 13 stars, the colonies breaking away from England to form the United States. I thought of the vertical red, white, and blue tricolor from the French Revolution and how both flags owed their beginnings to a riot, a rebellion, or revolution. I thought a gay nation should have a flag too, to proclaim its own idea of power. The definition of the groups that use the flag has increased to the following acronym, LGBTQIA+. That's the most recent one. It's changing constantly. The current acronym represents groups that identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transsexual, queer, intersexual, asexual, and the plus representing groups that support the LGBTQIA groups, including agender, demisexual, gender fluid, gender gray sexual, non-binary, gender queer, pansexual, homosexual, polyamorous, saposexual, and two-spirit. Obviously, the flag is a power statement by groups that are promoting their particular sexual orientation. I have to ask why. Why do these groups wish to push their sexual lifestyle on those of us who do not share that perspective? All people should be treated equally and accepted as they are. I believe that the gay pride flag is about proclaiming power, and that flag sows discord rather than bringing people together. So my recommendation in my letter, as you may recall, was what Mr. Weber presented. Allow the United States and the Colorado flag. If you cannot agree to that, you need to develop a policy like we did when I was on the town board for the street paintings and for the naming of town facilities. So that's my recommendation. But as you could see here, there was a lot of divisiveness. I didn't see, anyway, there was a lot of divisiveness. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Who else would like to? Yeah. Oh, okay. Can we hear them?
iPhone, you can speak.
Can I talk?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jasmine Holthausen, and I am a community member of Paonia for the past 5 years. I am a queer woman that lives in our town, and my child goes to the school. Both of my children go to the schools. And honestly, when I saw the banner of all are welcome, I have never felt more included and safe to be a mother of 2 children and be queer and to have them feel like I'm accepted. I am also polyamorous, and so that also gives me that plus and the LGBTQ label, and I feel like this is really important for the community that I live in to be represented and to be included. It is an inclusion, and actually the plus is for people who accept us, and that's accepting everyone. That's accepting everyone. That's accepting Black and Hispanic and whatever anybody wants to identify as. And I believe that it's really important for the flags to be up. I think it's super important. And I feel like the bigoting that's happening and the harsh comments that are being made are really not helpful for inclusion. And if that's what you would like to have is a community that's all included, then you need to be able to include the rest of us and also let us be represented, because it is scary to be a mother and to be 35 years old and to come out as queer and to come out as polyamorous and to have people say that I'm not included, to not be represented as such. So I hope that all of you can allow yourselves to be inclusive. And I do think that the pride flag is inclusive. It's not exclusive. It's about honoring what everybody has been working through as individuals and as a community and the struggles. And we're finally being allowed to be ourselves. And that's what the American flag represents. That's what the pride flag represents. That's what the Colorado flag represents, is our community and supporting everyone. And I really would like our community to continue to support everyone, not excluding us. And I think that the Confederate flag, that's exclusion. That's exclusion. That's excluding people. The pride flag is about inclusion. It's including everyone in our community. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name's Rick Beers. I live at 48 Box Elder Drive here in Paonia. And my feeling is that I see these gay flags coming up, and it may not be city property. They belong to DMEA, but the town is regulating them. So in a sense, they're town property. You're the people that control who has them. And they are exclusive. I'm not gay, I'm not LGBT, whatever. They're offensive to me in promoting the lifestyle. If you're gay, I don't have any problem with that. I interact with all kinds of people. I used to be a contractor. I don't ask, what you are. We have a sign that's up there in the intersection that says you're welcome here. And it's up there for a lot of different times. If you're queer or gay, whatever, the sign is up there, you're welcome here. Nobody's excluding you. But when you put those gay flags up, you're promoting something. I don't want my children going that direction. My kids are all grown up and gone now, but they went through the schools here. I have a granddaughter who's now, because she went to a school and got counseled by public school counselors, she says she's gay. She's not gay. She just found someone that she could have friends with, and she decided she'll be gay at 14. I don't want to see that for the children in Paonia. If they feel that way and they decide that on their own, that's fine. We don't need counselors counseling to go that way. We don't need flags promoting that. Everybody's welcome in Paonia. Take the gay flags down, leave the "you're welcome here" flag. And, put school banners up and things on the light poles. That's fine. That includes everybody. And that's all I'd like to say. But when you have those light poles up there and you're regulating who goes on them, the MEA has turned that over to you. They're really city property for all intents and purposes. So I think you need to consider it in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes. Okay. Michelle?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Can you speak a little louder?
Yes. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So I was not planning to speak tonight because I think the question before the board is not this flag. The question before the board is what should the policy be? But some of the comments made tonight just make me very sad. I think it's unfortunate that some people are so adamantly opposed to what is seen by many as a symbol of inclusivity. And I sincerely hope that anyone who might be struggling with their identity or bullied because of their identity didn't have to hear what was said here tonight. And I hope that when you craft a policy about what flags or banners you will allow to be flown in town, you will consider not just the divisiveness that you're hearing tonight, but who you want to be as a town, what direction we want this town to go in into the future. Are we a town that's open and welcoming to everyone or not? And that's up to you as a board to decide what we want this town to look like. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Christine.
Christine Patterson, Price Road. So we have policies, procedures, laws, ordinances to sort of eliminate what we're seeing here. So when we follow those ordinances and procedures, we don't get to this division, this divisiveness. And I personally don't think those policies and procedures were followed. And as a result, here we are. So we have such divisiveness in this town over trees, over fence ordinances, over permit issues, over hiring issues. And it's all because the ordinance are not followed. And I would like to see more of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Brian?
Okay, Brian, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, here, have you got another device on?
Sorry, is this?
Hold on, will you turn down your speakers?
Am I okay now?
That's much better. Thank you.
I apologize. I have my computer and my phone. Anyway, I believe that we should be showing the flag. Jesus Christ was gay, and I follow his teachings, and it's inclusive, it's beautiful, and I think that we need it. That's all.
All right, thank you, sir. Yes, yes.
Skip Naft, Narga. I wasn't really going to say anything. I agree with Weber because that way everyone's excluded equally. And yeah, but I echo what Amy said too, which is we just talked in the Cherry Days meeting the other night about I think a Cherry Days flag maybe or something, I'm not sure, banner or whatever. So I'm curious as to, I wouldn't want that to get excluded or different events that were town, sanctioned.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Anyone else? Yes. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Sam Staley. I live on the corner of 3rd and Rio Grande. I didn't prepare anything, but it's something that's been tumbling in my head. And I do feel underprepared because I haven't done homework and I didn't hear your discussion and I missed most of the comments. So I'll just keep it super short and sweet that if we are going to honor the American flag and profess to be part of one nation, then anything that is a federal holiday seems to me appropriate to be considered before the council as appropriate to be flown.
Louder, please.
That if we are going to be considered one nation and respect the American flag, then we should also be respecting and honoring anything that has been declared a national holiday, which Pride Month has been declared a national holiday, national federal holiday. So that's probably already been brought up, but that seems very logical to me that any group that wants to fundraise and bring forward a proposal for a flag for a federal holiday seems fair game if we are democracy respecting the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. All right. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. We do have a motion on the table that the only flags flown on town of Paonia property be the United States flag and the Colorado flag. Is there anything else from the board? Yes, Mr. Merkel.
I do feel like the language there is a little bit tricky because this is not town property that we're talking about, and it's specifically flag. It's not other banners or other stuff that could be considered. So I'm not sure how valuable this particular motion is going to be.
Well, we can always vote again.
Right.
Yeah, the reason, I just wanted to trigger the subject. I think both you and Paige are right in that we need a formal policy document. Because we don't want to exclude Cherry's days. We don't want to exclude graduation. We don't want to include something that's going to split the community. And so depending upon how this motion goes, I would entertain a motion that we actually direct streets to create a policy that would then be enforced by.
You have something to say, Ms.
I
Smith?
just didn't know if maybe we want to amend the motion to make.
For it.
Oh, well,
Let's just,
No, she can do it.
well, yeah, but it seems to me simpler. Let's just vote this one, and then if we want to make another motion, we can make another motion. Okay, so all in favor?
Or can you restate it?
Oh, yeah, sure. That the only flags flown on the town of Camden property be the United States flag and the Colorado flag. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Opposed?
Yay.
All right, that motion fails. Would someone like to make another motion? What? Oh, yes, can we poll, please?
Or just do my yays, do my yay.
Okay.
Nay.
Oh, you want yays or nays?
Yes.
I want to see his hands up there.
Yeah.
Or his head.
All right, yeah, raise your hands if you said aye. All right, raise your hand if you said nay. All right. Is that clear, Danny? Yes. All right, thank you. All right, would you like to post another motion?
Well, I have a different motion to deal with the DMEA polls. And that's kind of what I was discussing, is the town property includes sidewalks where the holes are in the sidewalk where the American flags are put. To me, that is town property. The DMEA poles are not town property. And as I said, in our code, they are specifically separated. And what I'd like to do is make a motion regarding the DMA poles only. And my proposed motion is only city-owned or trustee-approved signs are permitted on DMEA distribution and street lighting posts.
Okay, do you have a second on that one?
I'll second
Discussion by the board?
it. Yeah, this is a good, one of the problems with the gay pride flags was that it never came before the board for approval. All right, so we never had any input on this, and we're dealing with the fallout from that. But this would, I think this is a right approach.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Fellow.
The place of the town council is to set policy, not micromanage every issue in the town. And we can set policy, yes, but we don't make decisions on each and everything that comes before the administrator or the town. It's just unwieldy, and that's not our purpose. We are a policy board, period.
Yes, Ms. Ferguson.
I just want to, two things. First, I want to state that the reason that these flags didn't come before the board is because they're exempt under section 18-6-40 in the municipal code, where it says the following signs are exempt from the provisions: temporary or permanent signs that are erected by a public utility company or construction company, temporary decorations, displays which are clearly incidental or are associated with any national, local, religious holiday or celebration. And so, I wanted to just add to the conversation that this was a conversation that came up in the community and was discussed at board level a few years ago when it was in reference to advertisements being placed on the DMEA poles for elections and for yard sales and for missing cats and missing dogs and all of those other things. And so I just want to be clear that the process and code was followed the way that it is written. And if you pass an ordinance that says nothing on a DMEA pole, that means nothing on a DMEA pole, including flyers, advertisements, election materials. I just want to make sure that that's clear, because to enforce that, we're going to be sending out our law enforcement.
Yes, Mr. Martin.
So 18-6-40 is part of our building code. I'm not sure that that should apply to anything except privately owned structures.
It actually does, though.
I said I'm not sure if it does or not.
So I weren't, believe me, I looked very closely at this.
Okay.
And it does say for any and all signs and it includes signs, banners and everything on any town, in town anywhere.
Okay.
Businesses, homes, et cetera.
I just said I didn't know. Thank
Okay.
you. So it might be expedient, I think, to kick this to streets, since we formed our streets committee last night. And I have it jotted down, it's me and John, right? Is that how we ended up? Okay. So, yeah, so what we can do is have a sit down, and we can invite, this would be everybody in the community, to see if we can come up with a good policy, because I don't think that this is productive right now with this larger group. So I think that a little less formal setting might be more appropriate. So I like the language that Paige has us here, and only city-owned.
Yes, only city-owned or trustee-approved signs be allowed on DMEA poles.
Okay.
Distribution street.
I'm sorry, what?
Distribution and street lighting posts. There's a distinction.
So this speaks, I think, more specifically to the problem, but it's kind of stopgap, like Rick said. It's not policy. So I think that what I'd like to see, what I'll be doing is voting for this measure and taking this up as a further discussion for streets.
Okay. Anything else from the board? Yeah, Ms. Love. Again, we're doing the 3-minute limit.
Susie Caldeslow, Harding Road. I just wanted to remind the town and the new trustees that you did adopt a signage plan that the Paonia Creative District spent hard-earned grant money on from the state of Colorado Economic Development. And in that plan, there is a design for a banner for the light poles, of which I have been working with the new director of the Paonia Chamber, Mitchell, who has funding to purchase new banners. We went through an extensive week-long community input section here, and we went out to a few other places like the River Park Festival and put together this plan. And we had 3 drafts. You all adopted the final one. You are using the logo that was created for free, by the way, for the town now. So my comment is I would love to be involved in the conversation at the street committee. I believe in the beautification of this town and not the divisiveness. And no way do I want to create divisiveness, but I do want to create beauty and community. So that's my 2 cents.
All right, thank you. There was another hand up, I believe. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so.
And if you've spoken once on this, you're only going to speak once on this.
Am I allowed to ask questions up here? Because I'm not clear what you're trying to do. We're all here to talk about this. We all came down here and you're trying to shut down this conversation and put it in the back room. Or you want us to come back down here on another day to talk through it?
No, I want to move this conversation to a less formal setting, because we have policies, procedures, and business to attend to tonight that interferes with an earnest back and forth like you and I are having right now. I want to do this, right, rather than all of this. So, Paige, can you read the, yeah. So what we're discussing right now is whether or not only city-owned signs and city-owned and trustee-approved signs are permitted on DMEA distribution and street lighting posts. Right.
That's a new policy, because the current policy is just you fill out an application and pay $50 and up it goes, basically. That's what I understand today.
I'm not familiar with exactly how this came to be.
Because I know a lot of people who have a lot of signs they want to put up. So if we're going to put a situation, we're going to play favorites, and we're going to say it's not just the United States. Now we're going to make every subgroup in this country happy. There's a lot of folks that want to put signs up. So let's make sure it's totally inclusive.
Okay. And is there, I'm assuming you would like to be informed of when the streets committee will be putting together this. So what I would suggest you do, if you could give your contact information to the town administrator, then she can contact you when the meeting is set. And that goes for anybody else who would like to attend that meeting. maybe if we put a sheet in the back where people can sign it so that they can be informed. Yes, Margaret.
Margaret Hollider, 1018 3rd Street. To me, it's a jurisdictional issue. That's what flags are for. If you're on the high seas and you see a ship coming, when they raise their flag, you know if they're friend or foe. It's a jurisdictional issue. This means if they have all these flags, they are taking over the United States of America flag. And that is not right. Unless you want this to be a town that's designated more of a sexual nature than sovereign American citizens. I have to say.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion on the table. Can I see that?
Yes.
Correct. All right, the motion is only citizen-owned and trustee-approved signs are permitted on DMEA distribution street lighting poles. Oh. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, that motion passes. All right.
Thomas, do you need a motion to refer to streets or?
If you like, yeah, we can set up a time. John?
Yeah, I think what's gonna make it should be you guys.
Yeah. Make a motion to
Or,
refer to streets.
yeah,
Can we, is that appropriate for?
if we could do it,
Committee to
or
move to itself?
we can, yeah.
It's not fair, just if I may, it's the direction you're looking for, whether or not the trustees wish to direct the streets board to review policy.
Or create policy.
Or recommended policy. So I think a motion that effect would be
Okay,
appropriate to show support for the streets.
Okay.
Spending time on that.
thank you. All right, somebody make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that the streets committee, and I was unclear about who all was on the streets. So it's Thomas and John. John, okay, the same as the IT committee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I go from electronics to pavement. So, and everything in between, it seems. So I'd like to make a motion that this, the development of this policy be transferred to the streets committee for recommendations to the board.
Okay,
I'll second that.
any discussion from the board?
One thing I do want to mention, so when we put something into streets, that's so we can have some people formulate a policy, because it'll have to be approved by the board. So this will come back to us to get approval. It's not like it's getting pushed into some back room.
Yes.
Wait a minute, Ms. Jackson, just a minute. The board gets to discuss this first. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mark.
Yeah, I want to make it clear that this is not trying to avoid the issue. It's trying to deal with it in a more appropriate way. Because this, I mean, we've done it, we've tried it this way, and we just end up here all night. So I think that it would be better to get together just as neighbors, which we can do when there's only two of us. It's why we do committee structures. If we're all together, we have different rules. When there's just two of us, we can just be neighbors. So we can figure out a time, and I don't know what the best way to determine it is.
Well, probably not now. This is not a good venue, but we can manage to get, again, the town administrator can reach out to anybody who needs their contact information, and then they can be notified. Yes, Ms. Jen.
I just think if
You
you.
know, please come up, please
They
come up.
can hear me.
But that's not the point. It's to be able to be seen on YouTube. And
Hello, Pamela Jackson. If you're gonna do that, Thomas, you and this fellow that I don't know, Tom Valentine, you both voted against his proposal.
Right.
So we want this committee to be a little bit more bipartisan. That's all.
May I respond?
Yeah, you can talk.
The reason that I voted against it was because it wasn't effective. The language wasn't enforceable.
Well, I understand.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with the principle that we should only have the American and Colorado flags shown. I disagree with the language of that motion.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
I just have a question.
Okay. Please come up.
Because I am totally confused right now.
Okay.
And what I'm confused on, okay, is you were talking about two different things. You're talking about the DMEA poles And then you were talking about the holes in the ground that hold the American flag. So does that mean that you're gonna have a policy for the DMEA poles and then you're gonna have a different policy for the holes in the ground?
No.
Maybe.
But we'll see, we'll see what we'll see what the committee comes up with and brings back.
That was confusing.
Okay. So we're gonna do both. Desmond's what?
I would like the committee to ask the town administrator for what's confusing her in the sign ordinance while you're working on this, because you want to make sure that everything dovetails together. However, I do want to mention the sign code was part of our land development regulations at one point. It does not mean the use of public property, it's private property rules, and I think it's being misinterpreted. I think there is actually something about nuisances. Signs on public properties can be declared nuisances. So what I'm saying is, if you could look into that sign ordinance, because this might be a time to do some fixes on it. Thank you.
All right. Yes.
I'd like to restate the motion.
That's what I was.
That might help decrease confusion. And what we did last night, most of you were not here last night, but Trustee Weber, since he's been on the council, has been advocating for us to use a much more efficient problem-solving method. And that method is that we would assign ourselves 2 people to committees, and those committees could hash out and do a deeper dive into an issue and present their findings to the council that could help us make decisions in a much more effective way than every issue hashed out by the entire council with each of us with our own viewpoints. And so we thought that would be helpful. For those of you that are really passionate about this issue, make sure you send an email to our town administrator, letting her know that you want to know when they're meeting so that you can talk to them about that. But it's not as formal as it would be in here where you have to take the podium. It's more like Trustee Markle says, person to person. So here's the motion. I move that the development of policy regarding flags be assigned to the street committee.
Okay, a second.
All right. All right. All in favor? Yes, Mr. Bradford.
Just one last comment. I think that motion is an excellent motion because the policy that I referred to when I was on the board was accomplished in exactly that manner. Okay, it is not intended to be backroom. It's intended to be efficient and develop the policy working with proponents and public works staff, and you bring it forward and then everybody talks about it. But I do want to say one thing else. Your job is more than setting policy. The last time this board did not perform its function of oversight was when we had the $600,000 investment. Okay, my first 2 years on the board, we dealt with that issue constantly. So please do not neglect your responsibility of oversight. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion that to move the development of a policy regarding flags be assigned to the streets committee. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Yes.
I'm just going to leave a sheet in the back of the room. If you want to be contacted when we set up a time for this or want to be involved in making a time with it. Oh, Corinne's got it in her hand already. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to, let's vote 5-minute break.
Moved in.
Move 5-minute recess.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, 7:55, we're back.
We didn't take any public comment on the 5-minute recess.
If you have conversations, please take them out of the room. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Can I get our board members back up here at the table? God, a whip in a chair.
It's just shy cats.
Stray cat, a water bottle. That's
Make a
easy.
motion that we get shot called. I second that. We can vote on it before they get here.
Oh, you got more, let's make a motion to do it.
All in favor? Doing that.
Next on our agenda, please, we're gonna try and conduct business here. We got a lot on our agenda and only just begun. So, next on our agenda is the Western Slope Conservation Center, letter of support. Ben, final.
Yes, thank you for welcoming me this evening. My name is Ben Tass. I'm the Public Lands Program Director for the Western Slope Conservation Center. And I tried to provide a lot of information in your packet. So hopefully I can make this relatively quick for y'all. But I'm here asking the town of Paonia to write a letter of support for the Gunnison Outdoor Resources Protection Act. It's an act it introduces a discussion draft by Senator Bennett, and it's built off of the work from the Gunnison Public Lands Initiative, which began almost 10 years ago. A group of community organizations in Gunnison County, all coming together, all from different perspectives and sides, mountain bike, a mountain bike group, conservation group, other snow trackers, other organizations like that, coming together to look critically at Gunnison County's public lands and determine which areas can be protected and which areas should be protected for different values, and really highlighting the values of certain areas. I think it's important for the town of Paonia to weigh in on this, not only because much of our irrigation water and drinking water comes from public lands on Gunnison County, but also wildlife, doesn't know county boundaries. The county boundary is actually pretty silly if you look at it, kind of straight line north to south that kind of cuts our watershed in half. And also the town of Paonia benefits pretty greatly from Gunnison County's public lands. We get many people visiting here throughout the summer, visiting Kebler Pass, other areas up in that area, all in Gunnison County, and staying in Paonia, spending money at our restaurants and hotels. And so I guess perhaps to make it short, I've drafted a letter and I've put it in your packet. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any questions. I've got essentially 3 asks. The first is to support the Gunnison Outdoor Resource Protection Act. There are 3 in discussion areas, which essentially are the core Gunnison Public Lands Initiative Working Group has identified them as having important values, but are wishing to get more input from people who live closer, like people in the town of Paonia, to those areas. And those include both the Clear Fork and Pilot Knob areas just north of us and north of Paonia Reservoir. And then also I've drafted a new boundary for the Lambourne Wilderness Edition, which would extend into Delta County. And then you also notice that I added a letter of support that the town previously signed for the Grand Mesa Uncompahgre and Gunnison National Forest Plan. So that is the same, you're supporting the same boundary that I asked you that you've already previously supported. So yeah, happy to answer questions if there are any.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, I like the fact that you included so many people in your in the actual plan. That, for example, moving the boundary for snowmobilers so they'd be out of an avalanche zone. I was considering what snowmobilers' needs were, also wilderness people's needs. I like the fact that it was broad spectrum.
Yeah, that was the and there are 10 different organizations who.
Other questions from the board?
I think it's really important that you explain a little further that there isn't an impact on ranching and there's not an impact on the springs from that wilderness business.
Yeah, sure. And I'll just read from a document that I also passed along to you. There's FAQs. And so it does answer both of those. So I do want to mention that one of the organizations who's working to craft this proposal was the Gunnison County Stockgrowers Association, and they have signed on in support of the Gunnison Public Lands Initiative, or the Gunnison Outdoor Resource Protection Act. So as far as ranching goes, the FAQ states, sustaining the ranching culture and livestock grazing in the Gunnison Basin was a foundational principle of the GPLI stakeholders, and that principle is reflected in the many provisions in the draft GORP Act. The proposal includes special language to ensure that ranchers will be able to continue their grazing operations within all of the proposed special designation areas. So that's on behalf of grazing, and so they were at the table. And then as far as water rights goes, the draft GORP Act is designed to protect critical headwaters for the Gunnison Basin and the Colorado River. It also includes specific provisions that apply to all of the special designation areas to ensure that the use and allocation of water rights are not affected. Provisions are incorporated from the 1993 Colorado Wilderness Act to provide the continued access to and the use, operation, and maintenance of water resources facilities like irrigation canals that are located within the proposed wilderness areas. So even if areas were designated wilderness, you'd still be able to access them as water irrigation structures.
But in that proposal, in the boundaries, none of the Paonia Springs are in that wilderness area.
None of them are in the proposed wilderness area. There are, when I was looking at it, there are 2 undeveloped springs kind of on the southeast side of Interocean Pass that don't have any actual structures associated with them, but there are 2 identified springs by the Division of Water Resources.
Not for Paonia.
Not for, I don't believe for Paonia.
Yes, that's right.
I looked that up because I tried to find it and I couldn't find the record of it, but that does not mean that they're not ours.
Right.
I think those are ours, actually. When I look at the old spring map, the Interocean Springs, and if you've been up there, there's a couple of little lakelets. Yeah, I think we have spring rights there.
All right, any other questions? Yeah.
I just wondered, to extend the Landward Mesa Wilderness Study, what will it take to get that approved after further? That's one of the 3 things that needs more work. And is it a Delta County Commissioners issue?
So there's a potential to need Delta County Commissioner support. I also think it will take a lot of municipalities like the town of Paonia weighing in as well to get that formally included. Ultimately, Senator Bennett and his staff will be the ones determining where to draw the boundaries and what to include. So it would be convincing him on where to draw that boundary. And the reason that I had extended that boundary is because I think from a management perspective, it makes more sense instead of drawing it on the county line. It'll be a lot harder for the land managers to manage that area. Whereas if you follow the roadless area boundary, which my boundary addition generally does, I think that'll make it a lot easier to manage.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter as proposed by the Western Slope Conservation Center. Supporting the, tell me what you call it again, I'm sorry.
The Gunnison Outdoor Resources Protection Act.
Thank you.
Or
Yep.
GORP.
A good one for us backpackers.
Right in there. Okay. We got a second?
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion from the board? All right, anything from the public? All right, we have a motion and a second to
A motion to support the letter as proposed by the Conservation Center in support of GORP.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you so much, Ben. All right, now we're on to regular minutes and the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda? Yes, Mr. Mark.
I would request that we pull out the, sorry, I gotta scroll back up to my top here. Mountain Harvest Festival application as an individual event.
All right. So can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda accepting the Mountain Harvest Festival?
So moved.
Second?
So seconded.
All right. Discussion from the board? All right, anything from the public? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. So now Mountain Harvest Festival.
Mountain Harvest Festival. So I'm going to I'm sorry I didn't have more time to prepare. The materials I had came to me this afternoon. One was an email that actually Randy did have time to thank you for that, by the way. Copy and hand out to you guys. A letter from Fish. I don't know what last name. More Fish. I just know about it. Anyway, so there are several businesses that have concerns about street closures on Grand. And I also have not only Mitch's letter, which I'm so glad that you got, it's going to save me a lot of time. But also I have a similar letter that I will read to you from Laura Chittenden of Indigo Autumn. I, Laura Chittenden, owner of Indigo Autumn at 230 Grand Avenue, would like to make it very clear that my signature on the notice about the Mountain Harvest Fest street closure was in no way intended as an approval of this closure. I am strongly opposed to it. Signing the notice was presented to me as an acknowledgement that I had been told it had been approved and was happening, and a way to get my contact info on a list that the town would use in the future to contact businesses. Please see the petition I have submitted to Trustee Markle. Since I did not know this was on tonight's agenda, I didn't make it to the rest of the businesses on the block, but so far several seem to agree with the closures hurt business. Signed, original. And this is a petition. We, the following Grand Avenue businesses, request that process be put in place by the town of Peonia, whereby owners, managers of affected businesses are given ample time and opportunity to give input to town of Peonia trustees, assumed to be the appropriate decision makers on such matters, prior to approval of street closures on Grand Avenue, and to have this input duly considered. Street closures are impactful and should not be enacted without due consideration. We request that we be contacted via our current email on file with the town, assuming that a contact list can be created and maintained, or by hand-delivered and signed for paper notices at least 6 weeks prior to any proposed event street closure. We request that contact information for trustees be included in these notices. Signed, Indigo Autumn, Simple Cafe, Peonia Farm and Home, The Diner, Rio Bravo, United Business Bank, Crunch Waffle, and Heart of the Dragon. I feel like this process kind of exists. We're doing it right now, right? But the communication has broken down somehow. So I don't know if we can resolve this by a motion right now, but I guess I could say I move that we do not approve Mountain Harvest Festival for 2022, pending a, the only way I can see it is like a vote by the impacted businesses. Because what we have here is a sheet of contact information which reads to me.
No, that's incorrect.
All right, just a minute. Amy, you
Which
did your
reads,
chance.
which reads to me as if it approved, it's a signature of approval for this to happen. And I think that if there were a checkbox that says approve or disapprove, this would be a valuable list to me in order to approve this application. So in short, sorry, I'm so roundabout for this motion. Like I said, very late in the day, but I move that we deny this application.
How about, all right. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, further discussion from the board.
There's been an ongoing problem with Mountain Harvest and street closures. I know that Hayes is vehemently against it over the years. Has impacted the business. What's your feeling, Thomas, on approving it without the street closure?
Yeah.
I mean, you think we can parse it?
Suppose that's up to us.
The other problem that occurred with having the streets closed and sort of a wild drinking night was open container violations on the street. That was an ongoing thing for law enforcement. So I'm sorry.
All right, Mr. Gates.
Having gone to almost every Mountain Harvest Festival that's been here, we've had a variety of locations. And when they were downtown, at least for the chili cook-off. That was kind of a neat thing. It was just a specific thing for a couple hours. The closing for the entire weekend is really tough on the businesses down there. There's no place to park. People can't get in and out of the businesses. And I'm wondering, I mean, it seems like the last couple of years where it's moved to the park, it's much more, it's the last weekend of September. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's freezing cold. So there's shelters in the park, there's trees for shade. It just seems like the park's got a place to hold the dang thing, but have parts of it downtown that don't interfere with the businesses. It's a tough one because we want to support the downtown businesses, but for some of them, like Farm and Home and Indigo Auto and other businesses, closing the street means closing business because their business is local people coming, getting stuff and leaving.
So I move to amend the motion to approve Mountain Harvest Fest but deny the street closure.
All right. You have a second on that?
I'll second the amendment.
I've got a comment to make.
Yes.
What about closing the streets only after 6 p.m.? I mean, that would be logical. That's when they do the music anyhow in town, and that way we can have people and food trucks, whatever, on Grand Avenue, and it doesn't interfere with the day-to-day business.
Okay, well, why don't we bring Amy in on this conversation because she's an integral part of all.
I have a comment too.
Yes.
The permit says Saturday, Sunday. I don't ever see anybody down there on Sunday. I don't know anybody that's open on Sunday.
Indigo Autumn is.
What's that?
Indigo Autumn.
Yeah, but that's about the only business.
Okay. Well, my suggestion was to look at Sunday or closure.
Right, Amy.
Okay, so I'm Amy DeLuca, you know me, this is Casper Kyle. I'm the president, he's the vice president. And as I've said in front of various incarnations of the council, that the Creative Coalition is the only organization we have in Paonia that is supporting downtown businesses right now. And I've been a Grand Avenue business owner, I'm on my 7th year. And I think I'm a pretty legit testimonial for what kind of traffic and what kind of flow happens with the festival season and the festival cycle in this community. This year, obviously, the Creative Coalition took over Mountain Harvest Festival, and Casper will speak to it, but went out. I put the letter in the packet that was given to every business owner who signed that page. That was not an email collecting mission. We explained to every single business owner what our intention is, and we gave them a thing that if it's not, is it in your packet? Did you guys get the page that is the flyer that we gave them? You don't have it there?
I don't know what we're show
It
us.
says what we're doing. Our council's bringing it down. Yeah.
It essentially said Mountain Harvest Festival is moving back to its roots in downtown Paonia for 2022. And we'd really like your collaboration as downtown business owners to make it a great event.
It's colorful. It's like green. That's the one.
That's the one.
Yeah. So every business owner downtown was given that.
Okay.
When they signed the page. And this was actually the first time we had 100% consent signatures from the businesses, because Casper went knocking until he talked to every single business owner.
That is correct.
So nobody informed me about us about these letters. Mitch signed, everybody signed. We already have their email addresses. It's not like we're trying to hustle an email list. So this is new information that was not presented to our organization. So back to our intent to bring the festival back where it began was so many people came to us and said, oh, thank God you're bringing it back downtown. That was the best, and reminisced about the chili cook-off and whatnot. So Harvest of Voices, all the different events that went down and how the business owners were the ones who used to do the chili cook-off part. And we were hoping we would do that again. We have somebody leading that charge. You see our professional team that's listed with all the information. So like I said, we got 100% consent from the businesses on it. And again, as a business owner, if in the last 2 years with COVID and the struggle that the downtown business community has had with trying to get people to visit our businesses and support us to stay alive, those street closures have been the best days in the history of my business and many others downtown. And the fact that we would be bringing business, basically spoon feeding it to the business owners by having the festival downtown is, you know, I could go all day about what people's business etiquette is, and, you know, from their business hours to a lot of other things, but I don't see how bringing them business could be a negative thing. And our team are pros. They know how to do this. And we've done other street fairs before. They've been hugely successful to our small artisans and small business owners to the brick and mortar. And so I'm really shocked, first of all, that this information wasn't brought to us prior to the meeting. And I'll be really devastated if there's not a further conversation about it. We put our information in, you know, almost 6 months prior. We've been busting our butts on it. And I really hope that you're going to have more of a conversation before you just like swipe it from the slate.
There's also a substantial amount of money that's been invested into this festival. A number of the businesses have actually heralded the idea and wanted to bring their businesses outside during the festival. It is an opportunity for this town to shine.
And we've also, I think it was Rick, addressed the parking. We've already established a shuttle and an intercept parking out at the high school for our vendors as well as the public. We are looking at some alternative camping support for lodging. The hotels we spoke to are thrilled about it. I don't know. I mean, to be totally honest, I'm a little dumbfounded right now because I can't believe. All right.
Yeah. So also, I just wanted to say that almost all of the state certified creative districts have an art fair that highlights the diversity of the artisans that live in their place. And Mountain Harvest Festival historically has always been a highlight of the local artisans, from musicians to beverage makers to fine art makers and the like. Cherry Days is not that anymore. Cherry Days brings in stuff, you know, fun for the kids, and that's great, but that's not what Cherry Days is. That's what Mountain Harvest Festival is. And since we've moved the Paonia Holiday Art Fair to the street, we have had more vendors, more people benefiting. We have distributed funds more widely. We're casting a net to more people.
More tax revenue.
There's more tax revenue, and it's a joyous occasion. This is a little new to be bringing it downtown. And at first I wasn't sure about it, but I really think there does need to be more discussion before nixing it. Because if you nix it, then do we still get to have the festival in the park? And what is this precedence of the town government just becoming like an oligarchy? It's mind-boggling what's happening.
Comments from the board?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. I'm sorry that this came as a surprise to you. I feel like that's probably the worst part, is that there's been a communication breakdown, and it sounds like it's going both ways. So what I'm hearing from our neighbors and your neighbors is that they felt like they were misled. And I suggest that you speak politely with them and find out what might, how you can both be good neighbors, right? Regarding specifics, I'm trying to understand that you gave this to those guys, right? So you handed a flyer, a festival flyer, and
It's
a
not a
list.
festival flyer, it's an information flyer for businesses.
This
I mean, it's not something we put
Mountain
out.
Harvest Festival. Oh, this isn't like a promotional flyer.
No,
This
it's
is
just to inform the businesses of our intention and have them have something to physically show
Okay.
that they
Um,
were told.
What I would like to see is like an agreement. Because this is pretty obscure. If I see this and you give me a list that says, hey, give me your contact information, and I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't know how it went, okay. But I don't see anything on this that would indicate that I am agreeing to this, right? So if I see your list that you provided on page, just before that, page 27 and 28, right? And it says, at the top, right? Instead of Mountain Harvest Festival street closure sign up sheet, say, I agree to this closure. I think this is a great idea, because what I've heard from your neighbors is that your best day is their worst day, right? These guys are not making the money that you are on that day. So what it comes down to is like, you need their permission to take their business, right? I think that's only fair. And that's how I see it. So I'm not going to be willing to approve it now. If we want to do, did we get the approval on the,
No, we haven't done that.
So I just want to respond to your comment. So we've been cultivating the relationship with the business community for 3 years. This is not their first time being visited by us or the first time we've asked them for a street closure. I just want to give you a little history because we feel like we've really built the trust of the downtown business community by having the street fairs. So we've done the 2 holiday art fairs, and then that first year of COVID, we did a couple kind of experimental closures. So our like beacon of success has been the holiday art fair. And that's where we felt like we know how to professionally deliver something. So it's not arbitrary. They know who they're talking to, and they know who we are and what our intention is. So like I said, you didn't share this information.
I only got it this afternoon, like an hour before the meeting started.
So we've never received it. So it's very surprising that the downtown restaurants are telling, and food purveyors are telling you and not us. So that's my response to what you're saying.
Sorry, I don't mean to surprise you.
All right, Mr. Knudsen, you had your hand up?
I did. I'm wondering if if you'd be willing to go back to those businesses and see if there's a way that there's middle ground. We just, it's not table, what's the word?
Continue.
Yeah, continue.
We continue the item for the next meeting and ask the Mountain Harvest Festival to work with the ones that have signed there and see if there's a middle ground that all of you can reach.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to make a motion.
Well, we still have a
No, you
motion.
can't. Motion table is legitimate no matter
But
what.
yeah, I would like to add some history to this because in the 4 years that I've been on the board, and we have approved all of these street closures. And it's like Cherry Days. When they close, they don't close the street for Cherry Days, but when they bring the downtown days to Cherry Days, the place is mobbed. People are everywhere. Businesses make out really well. And I've always wondered, could we do the same thing for Mountain Harvest? Because that's been one of the complaints is you put Mountain Harvest over in the park, the people don't come downtown. They don't.
Ghost town.
Yeah, it becomes a ghost town. And so they're not reaping the benefits of the Mountain Harvest Festival. And again, the traffic is higher. People are walking into businesses that they usually don't walk into when the street closures are on. So it has been beneficial. And there have been 3 main people who have disagreed with these closures from the beginning. And that was Hayes Drug, it was Indigo Auto, and it was Farming Home. And the rest of the businesses were happy. Now this time, I don't know what's going on, but I agree that I think that going back to the businesses, having another good conversation with them, and tabling this matter would probably be the best thing. We do need to dispose of this agenda, this motion first.
Actually, you can table a motion while it's active. Yeah, so I second the table.
Okay, but we had another comment from the audience, yes, Lynn?
Lynn Howe, 3rd Street, and I'm representing Peonia Playworks. We're tucked away behind High Country Printing, and these street fair closures have saved us because we really go month to month with memberships and try to get people to sell their pieces and then be able to pay their membership. And we were very excited about having it happen for Mountain Harvest. We did Cherry Days, we were open, nobody came, we just sat there all day. And that happened even with last year at Mountain Harvest. And when we're on the street, we get people from out of town and they spend money like, this town, doesn't. And we know that, that's okay. But we really want to bring in and support the arts to the outside community where some of the money can come in and support our artists. So I just wanted to say that it really does help the businesses, I think, and the smaller businesses. So thank you.
All right, so we have a motion.
I just wanted to add one more quick thing for, there seems to be an ongoing, people don't understand who we are and what we do. And so I just wanted to give all the members one of these, and leave the stack for Thomas's business. And this is just one of the things that the Creative Coalition does. And I would just ask you to look at all the businesses on that map and see who wanted to be part of the map and who didn't. And, we pretty much included every business that we could think of that wasn't a real estate office, because it was about dining out and shopping out and sleeping in our town. And we've done this for free. We don't ask anybody for money. We like to hope that our members support our cause. And I'll just leave you with that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to table this. Do we have a date certain we want to bring this back?
Next regular meeting of the council.
So the second Thursday in July. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes.
Can you give Amy that copy of the letter?
Oh, yes.
She can contact them.
Well, we should probably, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a copy for the town, and then we'll get a copy for. I'm breaking the flags. Not good.
At least you got the minor one.
All right, next up is the mayor's report is included. There's a whole lot there. But if I'm willing to take questions from anybody about anything on the report.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yes. Trying to get your attention.
The board moved Mountain Harvest Festival off consent and went right into Mountain Harvest Festival. You haven't approved the consent.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
No, it was approved.
Yes, we did. We did. I take that back because we did approve.
Yeah.
Everybody voted for it.
Yeah, it was.
I think I made a motion to accept the consent agenda without the motion.
Okay.
Item, and that's what we.
Without it, so there was a misinterpretation.
Right.
And then who seconded it?
Did you second it, Dave?
I think I did. I'll take it, people like.
Okay, any questions on the mayor's report? Yes.
Regarding the tank liner. I believe we solicit a statement on lining the tank versus replacing the tank from the advisory water committee.
Okay, well, what we're looking at right now is just, and it's all options.
The mayor's report.
Right, no, I'm saying it's all options. All right. We have a motion, repeat your motion, please.
I move to solicit a statement on liner versus new tank from the advisory water committee.
Prior to getting the report from Paige and I are going to prepare a report on SRI funding versus tier 2 funding and what.
That's if it's can be included in that, that's probably fine. That's the it's the same on lines versus tanks from AWC. And this is regarding the item on the mayor's report looking at applying for state revolving funds to pay for tank liner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Second?
I'll second.
Yes.
So second?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, are you suggesting that the 2 million gallon tank be remediated and lined at a future date and that we buy a second tank so we have a tank to use for permanent storage? What's your?
I have no direction for you other than I'd like to have a statement because in reviewing the meeting minutes, I've noticed that it was a topic of conversation that came up quite a bit. And it seems like we're moving forward with a process that may be short-sighted Whereas relining a tank has lasted, I think this one was 15 years, something like that. Like a new tank would last more like 40 years. So
I see what you're saying.
I don't know, like,
It's-
I don't know how deep you want to get into it, or if you just like,
Well, what we need are
some state.
what we need are numbers.
Eventually, yeah.
And it's not till eventually, because the difference between applying for SRF funding and applying for tier 2 funding is cost. Because tier 2 funding is dollar for dollar. We have to match every dollar that they give us versus SRF funding is not. So we need amounts so that we can say, we probably want to do this with the SRF and we want to probably do this with tier 2.
We have amounts, so you just need you guys look at it.
Yeah, I don't know what the amounts are, but we'll do that. Okay.
All right, so
We have a water advisory committee meeting next week.
Wednesday.
Correct. And obviously the water, Thomas, you and I, and the water committee will be there. We'll be merging those together. Can this be a subject that we can discuss and get some numbers?
Yeah, put it on the agenda. Oh, you know, if you could publicize, could you make it a public meeting?
Well, that's not a public meeting.
Yes.
It's only 2 of us.
But there will be 3 other.
Yeah, then you got to
If,
publicize.
could you make the AWC a public meeting, please?
And there's a
Fine.
number out there.
I could actually maybe come up with an agenda.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to solicit a statement on replacing versus relining the 2 million gallon tank by the NWC. All right. Any further discussion?
There's a number of other issues that are going to come up that have to do with relining that tank that needs to be addressed next week. I've gone through your minutes from the last meeting and there's some things that won't fly. So
Again, we're looking at figures.
yes.
So-
What we do depends on how much it costs.
Exactly.
The other issue is that we're running out of high water.
Yeah.
Period.
Bugs me.
And this probably will be next year before.
Oh, absolutely. It's just getting the funding in line is going to be next year. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Anything else on the mayor's report? All right, then let's move forward with staff reports. Ms. Ferguson.
Yes, of course, as usual, I did include in the packet a written report. I've also included some additional attachments and information in that report. One item that's not in the administrative report, I was requested that I discuss with the board is there is a light that belongs to the SBA tower on Cedar Hill or Key Hill. That has been shifted with the work, I believe, that AT&T has been doing up on the tower. And so I have requested an ETA from our SBA communications contact on when they can get up there and address that. I've also let them know that with whatever's happened with that light, that it's now staying on 24 hours a day. And so I'm just waiting for them to let me know when they're going to be scheduled and they're going to get up there to take care of that light. So I did want to let the board and Aaron know that piece of information. And of course, I'm open for any questions about anything in the packet.
Questions for the town administrator? All right, see, yes.
Oh, am I
Go.
on your last bullet above request for board action, sewer line on Doris Avenue will need to be engineered to replace. So my question is, can we put that out as a request for bids? Is it time?
We can, yes, but that is actually part of the reason. It isn't an emergency. And so it was one of the items that these things are starting to pop up. That was the impetus for the request for board action at the last meeting, the board had moved to publish RFPs for the SOPs for the water and wastewater plant and an RFP for general construction standards and things like that. There are somewhat smaller projects. And so I was asking the board to consider, before we do RFPs for those, to do an RFP for a general contract engineer. The town has not had one for a very long time. It's been discussed. SGM did provide a unilateral contract agreement to do so. And I know that that's not supported by the board without a process. And so I would ask the board that we start that process and potentially get a general contract engineer in that could look at these and help put together the information that's necessary to put out an RFP, like shooting the depths, location of manholes, things like that.
So my follow-up question would be, which budget line item are you gonna pay for this with, since we don't have any money in contracting, in water or sewer? So where's the money gonna come from to hire our general contract services?
To do a general contract, well, we would have to, Cindy, I don't know, right off the top of your head.
Can it come out of streets? Is there contracting in streets?
General contract services would come out of everywhere because it would be a general engineer. So anything that was street related, water related, sewer related, anything. So it would be spread across all.
Mostly I'm bringing it up because there's no money allotted for contract services in water or sewer. It's my mantra that I keep saying, so it's gonna have to come from some other budget line item. And we need to know that.
It would be out of engineering, which is included in legal.
Okay.
All right, anything else?
Kind of traditionally, Paige, what would happen is that the contractor would only do work for us on demand. And so whatever job that was would be assigned to that particular budget. If it was a water job, they were doing to go to water.
Well, I was asking because this is the general, this is the contract for people to, we have to have the money to hire, do the RFP and then hire somebody in the general sense. So that's my question too. So it's from cradle to grave, I would say.
Correct.
Where the money's coming from. Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, Mr. Martin.
We said that second item, following passage of the updated I-code review final IGA with City of Delta for building official will be on the agenda. Do you have a time frame for that?
Well, probably within 2 meetings of the final passage of the updated I-code.
Which is on our agenda today?
Yes, it is, but I have no idea to know when that will be passed. And there is a process for passage of an I-code. So it requires 2 readings and a public notice.
Okay. So realistically, what's your time frame for your IGA?
Within 2 meetings of the final passage of the updated building code.
Okay, so 30 days plus X. Okay. Okay. How about I move to terminate the contract with Shums Code Associates Incorporated, DBA Colorado Code Consulting in 60 days.
Do I have a second?
Second for point of discussion.
Thank you. So I sent an email on the 14th to Corinne and our building official. And I said, it's come to my attention from a private citizen that the private dumpster that's been in public parking area behind town hall for demolition has material that may be asbestos containing building material in it. It indicated that trustee Smith has contacted you and was told that owner would be personally performing abatement of the suspected asbestos material. As previously licensed state asbestos building inspector, I must warn you that this would be incredibly irresponsible, dangerous, and maybe illegal. Please contact the building owner, contractor, and tenants immediately. I didn't get a response from that. I asked that any response be shared with everybody. I didn't get a response, but the material disappeared from that dumpster. So I can only assume that what happened was somebody got a call and the problem went away. So I didn't really appreciate the dangers before I went to these classes, and it's like a couple of days, you know, of just learning. But asbestos causes cancer, and most commonly it's a type of lung cancer called mesothelioma. And I'm not a certified abatement specialist. I don't have that certification, never did. But I am passing familiar with the process, and the material breaks down. The reason it's so dangerous is because it breaks down into shards on a molecular level. it passes through filters on a molecular level, like air, right? So in order to properly remove it, you need to have equipment that pressurizes your breathing so that you're breathing air from outside and nothing, you don't wear a mask. It's a different process. Everything has to be taped down, and sometimes it needs to be weighed depending on the material. And then there's a series of tests after the job is done to make sure it was done correctly. And I assume that our building inspector knows this and decided not to. I don't know what happened. But I expect that what was done may have been disregarded in public safety, and I don't feel comfortable having this contractor review building inspections any further at the shortest reasonable time.
All right, discussion from the board. Yes.
As a contractor too, I've dealt with this particular substance on a number of business, number of projects. And every time we had to bring somebody in that was qualified, certified, and they took care of the problem. Then after they were there was testing done on every level, every room, everything in the entire building. They also tested outside. There's usually air monitoring being done while you're doing the process of abatement. And the fact that there were asbestos or suspected asbestos in an open dumpster in the back of the town hall, that dismays me severely. I did talk with Corinne about getting the filters off the top of the town hall. Those could be analyzed for asbestos fibers, and we may have a contamination of the entire downtown where we have to abate the downtown. This is a serious issue. Asbestos is a guarantee for mesothelioma, lung cancer, and it's a terminal disease. It gets into the lungs, it cannot be expelled, and it causes mesothelioma. If you live long enough, you'll die from mesothelioma if you've been exposed to asbestos. And I'm waiting for my diagnosis because I know that I've been exposed. And back in the day, we just tore it out. And it was extraordinarily dangerous. And that's why we have the mesothelioma fund, where there are billions of dollars that people are being compensated for their injury. And most people are being compensated as they die. Mesothelioma, typically your survival time is less than a year from diagnosis.
Mr. Casey.
I'd like to hear from the building official and the contractor if they have any evidence of that. I'd like to hear from the building official and the contractor if there's been any evidence of that or testing.
Great. With all due respect for your concern, we have followed every protocol as stated that you brought up. Building there wasn't an asbestos abatement in process. The project is finished. Someone was in a basement cleaning up. There was a little bit of asbestos in a corner on a shelf that he didn't know what it was, and he threw it in the dumpster. There's less than there's about a garbage bag full of stuff, which doesn't even trigger the state levels. Okay, I've spoken to the person at the state because he was called. He and I have been through everything. I've had the inspector back this week. He did air monitoring. He took samples of what was found in the dumpster. He checked the dumpster. Everything is being handled as was requested by the state and the building official. Nobody was trying to get away with anything. If anybody was trying to get away with some sneaky asbestos removal, I don't think they would have thrown it in a dumpster. You can, if you would like to come into the basement where it was removed from, you will see all of the pipe insulation is intact. Nobody did any removal of asbestos. Okay, and Chris Lakin was there before I started the project because it's required by the building permit process to do a full test. And he tested everything. He made very clear to me, which this is the important piece of the process. I am not allowed to touch anything that I don't have him test. If he doesn't test a surface, I'm not allowed to move it. So the asbestos that is in the basement is pipe wrap, and there was no intention to do anything with it, and nothing was done with it, other than this one person who was cleaning the basement happened to find this stuff, didn't know what it was, and threw it in the basement, in the dumpster. Sorry?
That's a problem.
It's a
So that person who picked it up.
He was wearing a respirator, gloves. I mean, I have pictures of what he was wearing when he was doing it. I respect your concern, and it's totally valid. That's why we follow all the protocols, but I feel like there's not enough knowledge of the circumstance, yet there's a lot of conclusions being drawn and accusations being made, and I don't think that's helpful. You know, and I do honestly, as a reference, I see that happen a lot here. People aren't informed on something, so they make the assumption that someone's doing something nefarious, when in fact, that's not the case. So I'm not doing anything wrong, and I followed every protocol as requested by the state. And so what we've done now is Chris Lakin came back, did all the testing. He and I discussed it all. He looked at it. He said, in his assessment, it is not an issue. It's not a trigger level of asbestos. It's not endangering anybody. He did the testing. When the testing comes back, he and the state representative and I are going to have a conference call. And as Severin, who is the state rep, said, if it's what you're telling me and Chris verifies that, I have nothing to say about it because it's far below the trigger level. So that's what I can offer us for a little clarification.
Dan, questions, please.
One other note. So I didn't just pull it out of the dumpster trying to get rid of it. I talked to Dan about it. He suggested that was the thing to do. Severin said, in fact, that was the right thing to do to get it contained. So that was why that protocol was followed.
I have no record of an email from you, Mr. Thomas.
I apologize.
So if I did not reply, that's why. I was given heads up from Trustee Smith on the 13th, and I immediately responded. We are very efficient with this. I always caution the contractors that this is an important state requirement. We have Chris Lakin that he's talking about is with Plateau Environmental Sciences out of Montrose. He's a respected, qualified environmental specialist. And he's been taking care of asbestos inspections. What's the 138 grand? That's the new where Ollie's Ice Cream is. It's being remodeled. That's been done. All the other buildings have been done. We caution the contractors to take care of that. I do not enforce the state law. I'm not a state employee, but I still caution them and say this is your responsibility. Okay, and I responded immediately.
Okay, I want to make sure I have your email, dan.reardon@shumscoda.com.
That's correct.
Okay.
SMS.
SHUMSCODA. Yeah.
Shums code.
That's what I said.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, this could be a misunderstanding, but I feel like from my perspective, what I saw was very concerning.
Rightfully so. And I reply right away. I will also make a comment. I feel like this town board is just destructive. I really do. I mean, gee whiz, you've got a contractor here that's doing a lot for the downtown area, trying to provide good business area, housing and everything else. And it seems like it's just a witch hunt. 60 days, let's fire Shums Code. That's fine. If you like, I have plenty of work and I don't need the harassment. I am very responsible, very professional, and I feel that the contractors you're picking on are the same. And I just take great offense to it. You got a question?
Can I ask you why you didn't red tag the building and keep it isolated until the testing's complete?
You have contracted with us because you don't have enough work to hire a full-time employee. And you don't have someone here 24/7. I was in Mexico for 2 weeks. I came back. I'm on the board of directors for the state of Colorado for all the building officials in the state. I had a 2-day meeting in Denver. I have a cohort in Leadville, Lake City, who was down with COVID, and I went to Leadville and subbed up there for 3 days. I am not here every day. So I am professional and responsible and do the damn best that I can. And none of us are perfect. None of us.
Can I have a little clarity to that? The job is finished. I have a CO. The job is not, there's not a construction project in process. It was just somebody cleaning a basement that didn't know what he found.
Generally, when asbestos is found and it's been disturbed, the building is closed until testing is finished.
Testing is finished. Testing has been done.
And it's been cleared by the official.
Everything is fine.
Can we see documentation on that?
We will absolutely present you with all the documentation without a question. Again, nobody's trying to get away with anything. Nobody's being irresponsible. It's real life, you know? I mean,
I appreciate you. And I think that by the same token, we're trying to remain responsible.
absolutely, absolutely. But I would offer, in this context, you know whose dumpster that is. Nobody called me. Was it because you assumed I was trying to get away with something? Why wouldn't you just say, hey, Frederick, do you know there's asbestos in the dumpster, buddy? We got to take care of that.
My first step was to write an email.
Okay, but not to me. Nobody talked to me. The only person I got to
ask that you.
All right, let's not.
Okay, no, I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing. I'm just making the point.
Can I talk to, actually, let's talk to both of you later.
Sure. And I would just make, in closing, I just wish the communication were more open and a little more generous, because I think that would really help this town and the function of this body. And this body is representing the town. I think the divisiveness that we saw with the flag issue is a good reference on what happens in this town. And I think part of the responsibility of this body is, to your point, Mr. Stetler, create policy, create an inclusive policy, something that considers everybody's point of view and justifiably says, this is what we think is the best thing to do with everyone's best interest at heart.
But democracy, buddy.
See what?
I said you got democracy.
I know, but I'd like to see it.
That's what we're trying to do here.
All right, well, what I would, to his point, better communication. Don't assume the worst of everyone. That's what I would offer.
Okay.
All right.
I'll talk.
Thank you.
As far as red tagging the building, that was not my responsibility. I did immediately suggest to the contractor to go to the environmental science person who is qualified. The day I go in and shut something down when I don't even know what I'm talking about and make assumptions, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to get the town in trouble. I don't want to go there either. So I'm being cautious on both sides. And I think just jumping to the gun, jumping to conclusions is the wrong way to go. So I investigated it as far as I could and directed everything in the right direction. So any other questions?
We have a motion on the table to terminate contract with Shrimps Coda in 60 days. In a second. Is there any further discussion?
I think it's a premature motion because we don't know how long it's going to take us to pass this building code. And I will be voting against the motion.
Any other comments? Okay. Yeah.
Having been involved with getting multiple building inspectors over the time I was on the council before, it's virtually impossible. And we can't fire the building official and not have it right, because we run into the same thing that we had 10 years ago, where we had no building official and things went wild. Permits were issued, but nobody paid any attention. I know of one roof that was done that the house basically had some serious rot problems because they didn't have a building inspector inspect the roof, and there was no flashing on a gable wall or on a dormer wall. And they had some serious problems. We need a building official. And if we're going to go ahead and fire the building official, we're going to be in the same situation we were before. This is a necessary service.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr.
I'll be brief. So the motion wasn't to terminate now. It was when the
60
the
days.
replacement was.
No, it was in
Well, it's 60 days. The intent was for when the replacement was here. And I apologize if anybody feels slighted by my motion. Basically, this is a matter of communication, right? And communication went into darkness. So the appropriate action I felt was to move directly and if this had been a public health emergency, right? Basically, I feel like this is an appropriate motion. And I appreciate Mr. Reardon and Mr. Zimmer's input because it sounds like this is not a public emergency.
So would you like to withdraw your motion then?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, actually, I wanted to
Sorry.
Oh, I don't comment because it's on the agenda. No, it's not.
Sorry.
All right, so let's move on. Anything else for the staff reports? We're at 9 o'clock. We have a lot of business to get through. Can we please move on?
Well, I didn't know if Corinne needed a board vote. She asked for board action.
Yeah, I need action from the board.
General contractor one, we're back to there.
Yeah,
RFP.
put out an RFP for a general contractor.
Yeah, I make a motion to put out an RFP for general.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, let's move on to the dark skies ordinance. On unfinished business, we did get a red line version of this, and will be the second read. This has been going on for almost a year. Longer than that. So we really do. I mean, this has tarried and been kicked around, and we really need to do something about this. Mr. Newton.
Well, once we pass this, you won't be able to drive at night. I'm just kidding. So the reality of this is we've gone through so many public hearings and so many iterations. I really appreciate Jeff's work on bringing it to a fruition and finally getting to a point actually pass this. So I'd like to move that we approve ordinance 05-2022 dark skies ordinance for the second reading.
Do I have a second? All right, discussion from the board.
No, I had someone while I was fixing my truck come over and say, you guys gotta get this done.
Okay. All right. Anything else from the board? All right, anything from the public? All right, yes, Ms. Watson.
Okay, so I was just, I'm curious because I'm seeing references to do two different chapters in our code. And one is chapter 18, outdoor lighting regulations. And then when I look at section 2, code amendment, chapter 16, article 7.
Can you say a page number, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, 66. So I guess I'm just wanting some clarification more than anything else.
If I may, it looks like the title of the ordinance, which is mostly just incorporates the exhibit. The title didn't get changed to 16 from chapter 18, article 11 to chapter 16, article 7.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong version. I wasn't looking at the red line version.
No, if you look on page 66, I think this is, at least that, well, maybe I noticed it. So it says, an ordinance of the town of Peonia amending the Peonia Municipal Code with the addition of certain sections to chapter 18, article 11 regarding outdoor, chapter 16, article 7. That was from the prior ordinance. The work that I did was to mostly clean up. It was my understanding that the substance of the ordinance, the substantive parts were really wasn't an issue. So it's largely. So those changes were made to move it to 16.7 and should be reflected everywhere else.
Okay, so that little detail might be changed.
But yeah, that's a good thing.
If you ever want to hire me, I'm available.
Thanks, Suzanne. I'd like to modify my motion, approve ordinance 05-2022, ordinance of the town of Peonia, Colorado, amending the municipal code to the addition of certain sections of chapter 16. Is that correct?
Yeah, 16, article
16,
7.
article 7.
Yeah.
Regarding outdoor lighting.
All right. Second degree to that?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion?
You're fired again.
All right. All in,
Actually, I have one more comment. I'm sorry to be such a stickler, but when you're adding things to our land use development, it has to be a hearing. Anything that goes into chapter 16 is not a simple ordinance. It's has to be advertised in the paper. And I'm very supportive of the dark skies. I just want to see you guys following the processes. I mean, we have to follow the processes.
Great. We get to.
As
this is citizens.
If it's going into the land use code, there should be public notice and a hearing. And if
And
this-
that's what chapter 16 is. Yeah, and that's the land use code.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
It's good.
But this is why.
Can I just say, I really appreciate Suzanne's comments too. I think
I mean, this is why we pay people, clerk, town administrator to help catch these things because they know our code. It's not just up to the lawyer, it's up to the whole team.
Okay, so
Thank you.
so we will. So this motion is not valid. We will go ahead and have a public hearing.
I'm going to amend the motion pending a public hearing.
But it's going to come back.
Yeah.
This never. All right. So now we're down to ordinance 606, 2022 building regulations, first read. So this is the change to our building code.
Sure, I'll go ahead and introduce this item.
Okay.
So it's, back up to this town and most towns, the state, Delta County is the exception, one of few, the building codes, and they apply, they're based on form codes adopted by the international, butcher the name of the International Code Consulting, something like that, Code Council. And so those codes are, applicable or adopted throughout the state, throughout the country, and they get updated every 3 years. And those codes, in many cases, are to adapt to more modern building practices. Otherwise, they're to respond to safety concerns and other things. In some cases, it's to incorporate new energy efficient things. There's now an energy code that is required to be adopted by the state if you've got a building code. And so the town's international codes were last updated, or the version on file was the 2003 codes. And so what many communities are updating to the 2018 codes. And there's 2021, but I think there's a general perspective on the 21 codes that they're a little bit far reaching, and the next iteration of 24 is that they'll kind of be scaled back a little bit. But
We'll have to change again.
maybe it's, it's not uncommon to live with a set of building codes beyond when a new one comes, but there's the right time to update, and that it's been on the town's to-do list, I understand, to update to the 2018 codes. And so worked with Dan, and Dan and I have worked on this similar project for other communities in the past. Dan did a really excellent job in going through these international codes and making appropriate recommended local amendments to the codes, and just was very thorough and thoughtful, and appreciate all the work that Dan did on this project. So what we did was largely put together the nuts and bolts of this ordinance to incorporate, to adopt by reference these international codes. If you have questions on some more of the details, Dan, maybe you'd like to comment a little bit for the board if you like. There's a procedure for adopting codes by reference. It takes 2 readings, and after the first reading, there needs to be public notice of the second meeting at which the code would be reviewed at a public hearing. We're preparing the notice for the town to advertise for that. It has to be published twice. The first one at least 15 days prior to the public hearing, the second at least 8 days prior. So that'll come up. So this is the first reading of the ordinance to consider adopting these updates to your international codes.
Questions for the attorney? None. Okay, can we get a motion now?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Ordinance number 6. 2000.
There we go. 622. An ordinance for the Board of Trustees of the Town of Paonia, Colorado, amending Chapter 18 of the Municipal Code and providing for the adoption and amendments to the International Building Code, the International Mechanical Code, the International Fuel Gas Code, the International Residential Code, the International Existing Building Code, the International Energy Conservation Code, and the Installation Handbook for Manufactured Homes and Factory-Built Housing.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, from the board, from the public? 3 minutes.
I haven't reviewed this extensively, but I do want to thank Jeff because Bo Nerlin was completely overlooking the fact about the adopting codes by reference and the protocol for that. But I'm a little confused here. I'm on page one. This is one small detail. Page 137. I'm wondering about the numbering 18-8-20. Is that how it's going to appear in our code?
What page are you on?
137. So the reason why I'm wondering is we do have a section 18-8-20. So I don't know if this was just specific to this ordinance or were you numbering them to as a section number to put them in the town code. The 18-8-20 is exceptions to maximum height requirements. That was the title in the Paonia Municipal Code right now. So that's one question. And my other question is the appeals board that you're creating here. I'm a little concerned because it seems to conflict. I mean, I don't know. I'm asking you a question. The town board of trustees shall serve as the town building board of appeals. Now, what is the zoning board of adjustment and board of appeals? I thought we created an appeals board and it was composed of 5 citizen members of the community. So what is this whole section about? And I think this is great that we're having a first reading because we obviously, I mean, there might be some like combing through this a little bit to making sure that it really fits within the code that we have. And, you know, I don't know if there's a committee that could help.
I wondered, I did have a note about that. I just didn't know if the 2018 IBC and all that other stuff created some new board of appeals.
Well,
that made it the trustee.
That's something that we have included in or had in other communities. There's a process for processing.
Yeah.
Some cases it's just board of adjustment, some cases it's board of
we just created a board of appeals last year, and there is a little redundant.
except for the zoning related things.
I know we have a board of adjustment for zoning, but they also serve as the board of appeals in chapter 18 of our code, which is the building code.
Okay.
And there is a little conflicting stuff in chapter 18 right now. I'm not sure if it was actually cleaned up after the board of appeals was. Perhaps the clerk could bring some of the concerns to you about that.
Well, we're almost at 3 minutes. Suzanne.
Yeah, anyway, I'm not commenting about the whole ordinance because, but I wanted to bring those are kind of major concern. That's a major concern there. That looks like it might need some work.
No, that's a good comment. So for second reading, we'll make sure that comment gets addressed.
Okay, and then there was also, they talk about appeals, it doesn't stand for appeals to the electrical code, but we also don't do appeals to the plumbing code because we use the state plumbing inspector too, and that's the state board as well. So I think that might be noted somewhere in there. But then, I don't know.
Suzanne, your 3 minutes is way past.
Yeah, I know. Mary, this is fucking important, okay? This is important.
This affects people's lives.
Please, language.
Creating laws.
Yes, but
yes. That was a minute ago, that language. That's water under the bridge now, but I'm a little impatient with your cavalierness. Thank you.
all right. Anything else? All right. We have a motion and acceptance. Motion and a second. Approve first read of ordinance 06-2022 building regulations. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes.
And
All right.
I'll just say, for second reading, we'll make sure all that gets reviewed and corrected.
Thank you. All right, so it is 9:11. We have Mr. Schwederman is here and has been sitting here for a very long time. So, but we do have things that we have to take care of. If we're going to continue, if we're going to stop this meeting at 9:30, then we have business we need to actually get done tonight, which is disbursements. We need the attorney's report. I don't know that anything else is of burning importance that needs to be taken care of tonight. So what does the board feel about addressing Mr. Schwederman's issue on the Airport Advisory Committee, dealing with the town attorney and disbursements, or going later, continuing this meeting until we get through our agenda? Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
I'm recognizing trustee Weber's previous comment about making good decisions after 9:30.
Yeah.
We don't have a history of doing that.
Yep.
So I would like to make a motion. First, consider item number 8. And secondly, consider item number 12 and item number 14.
All right.
What was the first item I missed?
Eight.
First item is 8,
8,
so
12, and
8,
14.
12, and 14. I'd like to move that we go to those items immediately.
All right. Yes. All right. Any further discussion from the board? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. So, Mr. Schwederman, consideration of a North Fork Advisory Committee.
Neil Schwederman, 420 Minnesota Avenue. So until Tuesday, I was the chair of the County Airport Advisory Board, which was disbanded by the county commissioners at the objection of that entire board. And so the option that the county commissioners are offering is for town of Camden to have an airport advisory board, and I would offer my services in setting that up, whatever manner that the town would like that, and providing educational opportunities about the town's ownership percentage and all the stuff that goes with that. So I'm offering my services to organize that at a number level that I can achieve. So tell me what you want and I will make it so.
Suggestions from the board? Yes, Mr. Knudsen.
Well, I think trustee Markle also knows about this. Talked to trustees or to former mayor Schwederman about it. So there's some pieces that are knowledge to the board, but essentially what we have is the commissioners saying, we don't want to deal with this anymore. We want to focus on Blakefield. You guys figure out what you want to do. So to me, it's pretty simple. That we have an offer from a person that has experience in that, a community member that be willing to take on the responsibility of forming it, getting it happen, and educating, and in essence, be our advisory committee for the operation here.
So a question from Mr. Conklin. Do we need to set this up in ordinance?
I think it'd be appropriate to, if you're going to consider creation of this type of committee, to do so in a manner that identifies all its, what it's tasked with doing and what the town's role is within it. So maybe I don't have the full background on it to fully understand kind of what exactly is being proposed with this, but that I think an appropriate step forward.
Okay. Yeah, that's yourself.
Could I suggest that we put this to a committee to work with Mr. Schwederman, and we set up the parameters of the committee and then create the committee at some point?
You what?
committee, building a committee.
Yes.
That's unfortunate. but that's
So we
all.
don't, we don't have a committee that this really falls under. And the committees that we just.
I was on the airport advisory committee way back at the beginning.
Right.
And we told the county it's your problem. So it's interesting how it's.
It's come back. So, yes.
I want to be clear, I am not at all an expert or familiar with this beyond what I've learned since that meeting with Board of County Commissioners. So I have no history and I don't know airplane terms, airport terms. I don't know what they're talking about or what to expect with history of it.
Well, I would be willing to work with Mr. Schwederman to come up with what we need to move forward on this, if the board so desires.
I think it'd be a good idea just to try it before we just put it into a stone in an ordinance. Let's try it, see how it flies, so to speak.
But we need to come up with some parameters for sure.
Absolutely.
So, and I would be happy to work with you to create those.
It sounds like we might need to.
Okay, so Mr. Stelter and I, with the board's approval, will work with Mr. Schwederman to come up with.
You want a motion or you?
Yes, please.
Okay, I make a motion that Trustee Stelter and Mayor Backren work with Mr. Schwederman on airport advisory.
All right, do we have a second? Second. Discussion from the board? All right, discussion from the public? Yes, sir.
Rick Beers, 48 Box Elder Drive.
Yeah, if you could.
I am an aircraft owner and have a hangar up at the airport. I have served on the advisory board with the county in the past until somebody else wanted a seat and I vacated it so that they could have it. I would also like to work with the town. It seems that in the past, the town has had limited communication with owners up at the airport who have substantial investments in hangars. Aircraft are not necessarily really expensive. Most of the airplanes up there are a lot less than the cars that you folks drive. So it's not a bunch of rich people, but the airport does bring in money into the town, it brings people who want to live in the town because there's an airport close. And I would be very happy to see an airport advisory board that works with the town rather than with the county that really looks at us as an orphan. So,
well, we would welcome you to join us as we put this thing together.
One of the things we did in the previous advisory committee was give more power to the pilots to control their world. In other words, we didn't pretend to be experts in aircraft or airfields. We let you guys have a lot more autonomy. I don't know if the county is the other side of the issue.
but the town has a lot of say in what happens up at the airport. And I think it would be very beneficial to the town to have an advisory board that actually talks to you. So, because you're going to be making the decisions. We don't get to make them unless you approve them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion and a second to have Trustee Stelter and Mayor Backren work with Mr. Schwederman on an airport advisory board. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, Neil, we'll be in touch. All right, next is number 12, the attorney report. Mr. Khan.
Hi, everyone. Well, my report will be fairly short. As Mayor Trustees, as you guys know, from our last meeting and discussions in executive session, it was after much consternation that I made a decision to not continue on as the town attorney past the end of the month. And that's going to continue to be the case, not to continue past the end of the month. Except for completing anything else I need to do with respect to these two final ordinances and any other questions that might come up. And I want to again thank you all for the opportunity to serve the town, to work with the town, to work with all of you. I've enjoyed it, and I wish you all the best. Forward to seeing you all not as a town attorney in the future.
Here's my concern, Mr. Conklin, is that we have approximately a week to get ourselves into a training. And I seriously doubt that that's going to be a possibility. Would you be willing to extend your stay with us for perhaps a month so that we can actually get a process in place to find another attorney?
Sure, that process needs to get started.
Exactly, that
Obviously,
process
we're
needs to get started.
several weeks ago. So.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thank you. Thank you. That's very generous. All right, yes, Mr.
Yes, I moved
Like Thomas and
to direct staff to solicit letters of interest for town attorneys.
What about contacting the attorneys that we?
What about a second?
I'll
second
that. All right. What about adding to that, contacting the attorneys that we previously interviewed to see if they would be possible?
At staff's discretion, I think that'd probably be a great place to start.
Yes.
If I could, when we hired Mr. Conklin, the trustees did it.
Right.
The trustees did everything because the attorneys worked for the trustees.
Yeah, but it's still, can put out.
Right. No, more in the administrative side, but we really kind of have a process already started. I have all the paperwork and we could get with whoever wants to spearhead the attorney search. And I do not want to volunteer.
All right.
But we have all the information and it just probably needs to be looked at and maybe thought about a broader search to put the request for, I think it was an RFP. I think, yeah, and maybe broaden where we send it.
Well, again, I mean, the timeframe on this is very, very short.
Yeah.
And our first iteration on that last night was not fruitful.
I would recommend directly reaching out to people who responded.
Yeah, well, no, we have that for sure.
Right.
And I think there were 4. There were 5 total. if I
Right.
remember
And
correctly.
I have some more names too. It's going to Corinne and you want me to turn them in?
Well, it all depends who wants to spearhead this, because I have everything in paper. You know, I have a file with everything in it.
This is a opportunity to set the personnel.
Very good.
The reason I'm hesitating is because we didn't decide who was going to do the administrator search.
Well, this is more than one thing, and believe me, this needs to take a lot less time than the administrator.
Well, I just don't know if the 2 of us should be doing 2 things at once.
Well, I think you can prioritize and put this first while you put out and,
Are you?
I mean,
well,
we just.
I'm just saying that I want everybody to be, we didn't talk about how this was going to be done, so I just wanted the discussion to take place. So if you want John and I to start on the attorney search and we'll hold off on the administrator, because I frankly have too many other things for the town.
Yeah,
that's okay. Do we need to vote?
Yes, we need a motion.
We have one with the personnel committee.
Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas. Yeah, that's right. You would.
Motion was to direct staff to solicit letters for town attorney.
Would you be willing to amend that to have the personnel committee do that?
Yeah, so amended.
Okay, does the second agree with that amendment?
Second.
Okay.
That's the better way to do it, just based on
Personnel
having done it
committee
before.
solicit letters of interest.
You
for
could
town
offer
attorney.
some of that work to.
Well, we'll do the
Because you're gonna have to
administrative.
work hand in hand with
But I think it's better if we spearhead it.
Okay,
Since
all
I've done
right.
it once already.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. So now we're at number 14, disbursements. And we have 6 minutes.
Okay, so disbursements have traditionally been done line by line, traditionally being since I've been on this new board. But in the old days, we just simply would say pay the bills because your disbursement summary is in the packets. Is it the wish of council that I break this down by lines or just to simply say pay the bills?
In the interest of efficiency, this has been reviewed at least twice, if not 3 times, that we go ahead and go back to the traditional, let's pay the bills.
And then if there's any questions on the disbursement summary, which is on page 285 in your packet, then I would entertain those.
So how does the board?
A simple motion to approve the disbursements as presented in the packet is
Okay.
sufficient.
Yeah, it's been done for a long time. So I make a motion to approve the disbursements.
You have a second.
I'll second that.
Discussion or questions? Okay, anything from the public? Okay, seeing none. All in favor of approving disbursement? Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, we got 5 minutes. Anything you guys want to tackle in 5 minutes? Oh, right, how did we do?
Oh, 5 minutes.
Yeah, Marco?
Yeah. I didn't want to go over. I was thinking I might get my, let's do the, how we do.
Yeah.
I feel like this packet was gigantic and it came on Wednesday. Like, I did not have sufficient time to, I didn't feel prepared at this meeting just because I didn't have time to go through everything. I feel like I didn't speak to things that I hadn't reviewed. And that's the exact opposite of how I want to operate.
I thought we did a pretty good job of getting through this giant agenda, better than I've seen before. But I do agree, Mr. Marco, 300-page packet is a lot to chew on.
Yeah, 354 pages, and a lot of that was repetitious for us because it was the letters, a communication about the
Do all the read time.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It took me 10 hours to go through the entire packet, and I did not do detail on disbursements as much as I like.
Yeah,
it's pretty tough.
Yeah, so do we want to deal with the remainder of the agenda items we didn't get to today?
Well, we have Grand Avenue Properties Review, we have the budget overview, we have the CDOT.
We didn't leave much unfinished.
What do you guys want to deal with these?
What's it look like for the next first meeting? Can we, if we
Is
punt,
the next
can we punt till?
meeting pretty heavy at this point? Yeah, we can just push this off to July.
I feel like the item number 9, next steps regarding enforcement of Grand Avenue property special review is timely.
Okay.
So I don't know about a special meeting for it though.
Well, no, to do it for the next regular meeting.
Or the other option would be to extend the meeting for 15 minutes and try and deal with
You
it
have to
tonight.
wake me up.
I'll throw my bottle at you, Dave.
Suggested 15 minutes.
I
We'll do a half job.
Can I solicit our attorney's advice on this matter? Is this something that we should deal with sooner rather than later?
Well, right now, there's nothing happening, on that issue. So it's, if it's the board interest to see something happen within the next few weeks, now, if you're satisfied with the status quo of kind of no action, then I think it's fine until the next meeting.
Okay, board decision. Yes, Dave.
First of all, I'm really disappointed that we're losing someone that has this kind of reputation as our legal counsel. He has expertise in water. We as a board have heard some feedback from experts who have been advising us about their frustration with our inability as a council to actually respect the advice that experts are giving us. And that, I think, is the reason, if I was in Jeff's shoes, I would be resigning too, because this council ruined my reputation. That's all I want to say.
All right. Yes.
It's my understanding that we're going to get a parting letter or some sort of communication from Jeff that may expound on his reasons and advice for us in the future.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's go, people. Actually, guys, we did a lot of this work today, considering
That sounds good.
all the feedback we got